Right, good evening, everyone. I might get us started. It's just a whisker past 6, so we'll get started on our October Cambridge Community Board meeting. Welcome to you all. We always can anyone hear me? It feels like it's not very loud. Yeah. What's happening? I'm not getting that. Okay. We will start with our karakia as we do all our meetings. E te atua kaharawa, homai ki a mātou tikaha, ki te whai atu i ngā huaraki tika, mo tēnei hui I tēnei rā, tihei mauri ora. To the great creator, give us the strength to follow the correct pathway for our meeting today. Blessing be to life. Right. Any apologies? It looks like we are all here. That's great. Disclosure of members' interests. Anything in our agenda today? Yes?
Yeah, sorry.
My chair's report is probably the one that you may need to.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yes. Yep, Philip. Any disclosures of interest? That my chair's report might be one that you just on the quarry.
Okay.
Yep. Now what about the Aauki consultation? So fine?
I think we're all right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right. No?
Sorry, we're not going to participate in making a submission on our Aauki. Okay. Yeah. And just to be clear on the sand quarry matter that comes up in your report, we've taken advice on that and been advised it is best if we keep ourselves out of that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you.
Support that. We'll be silent on that.
Okay, thank you. Right, now we will get into our public forum. Before I welcome the first person, I always like to introduce the board to people when they come, so you know who we are. So the Cambridge Community Board, Cambridge Ward is Sue Milner, Alana Mackay, Elise Badger, and myself. And then our rural rep is Andrew Myers. And we have two councillors that sit on our board as well. For the Cambridge Ward, Philip Coles, and our rural councillor is Mike Montgomery. And then we have staff, Brad, Kirsty, and our governance staff, Debs and Joe as well. So you're all very welcome. And I'd like to welcome Barbara first, Barbara Campbell. Nice to see you. Barbara, you'll have to push the little purple button and then we will all be able to hear you for those folks online. Perfect.
Right, so hi, my name is Barbara Campbell and I'm a resident in Cambridge and I'm here to let you know about a street market that I'm going to trial in Empire Street. I've called it the Little Cambridge Sunday Market. It came about from meeting Andy, who has the retro shop Ampersand in Central Port, and I was joining him on alternative Sundays to have a stand outside his shop selling some of my things that I have on my online store. And the feedback that I got from the public was that they missed having the Lions Market in town. And the main request was for quality and handmade goods rather than trash and treasure style. So I gave it some thought, and because I've been a regular vendor at the Britomart Market in Auckland in 2023, and this year have had a gazebo at the monthly Tamaheri Market, and having an online gift store, I thought that it would be a good thing to do. So I've spoken to the council and they asked me to communicate the idea with the retailers and businesses in Empire Street to ensure that they're okay with the idea of having stands just on the pavement with businesses that are closed. And I've commenced this and we'll be starting the market on the 27th of October. The hours are 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. And because I'm busy myself, I'll just start off small and only charge $10 per stand and have the sites near the roundabout end of Empire Street and just see how it goes from there. And if we're free for students and for charities, and there'll be no food to keep it simple. And also the Cambridge on the Dalion corner and Rouge are very keen to have that extra sort of activity on the street, and the fact that they'll, it's good for their customers. And my aim is to foster some vitality on Empire Street on a Sunday and to give people and businesses an opportunity to connect with the public. Markets are a fun and easy way to engage people, and I'm meeting the Chamber of Commerce early next week to ensure that, that people are in the know and that they're not thinking I'm doing something that I'm not, which is relatively just something quite simple. That's all.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Barbara. Certainly.
So that's just the artwork there, and
love that.
Poster and then advertise it on social media, and just take it as it comes.
Great.
Let it be something that's from the community and for the
Yeah.
community.
Oh, well, Empire Street is the perfect place.
is.
It just lends itself
It
to a
really
little
is.
market. It's so
Yes,
great. And I
there's
love that
quite
it's
a few-
Sunday.
Quite a few tourists sort of milling around in the
Yeah,
middle of the afternoon and that. So people
awesome.
out on day trips and that. So
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Does anyone have any questions for Barbara on the market at all?
Thanks, Barbara. That sounds really exciting. And I like that you have gone with the first and third Sundays to avoid the Lions Market.
Yes, that's right.
Not having a clash with that is great. So
good.
thank you for
Yes,
that
'cause
consideration.
some people said would we do it at the same time to sort of amplify what they're doing. And I talked with a few people and it felt that it just sort of confused it and didn't want to have any conflict.
Yeah.
And so that's why I've gone with that. And also the retailers were doing a monthly, Michaela at the shoe store was doing a monthly retailers market day, but that's more for the existing shops. So I felt that, you know, that's their thing and didn't want to confuse it. Yeah, I'll go.
Well done. Oh, Elise.
Thank you. Sounds really exciting. Can I ask what your online store is? What
Yes,
sort of-
Violet.
Violet.
Yes, I've been going for 3 years. I had a store in Ellerslie and I sell plastic-free beauty and New Zealand gifts.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so
And I was just wondering who was your connection at the council to sort of get this all up and
I think
running?
maybe Melanie, it was someone in compliance.
Okay.
Yes, and then someone else. Yeah, I think it was a conversation with her.
Okay,
Mm.
great. And they've given you the tick
Green
box?
light, so there's no
Perfect.
cost to me. And
Yeah.
as long as I communicate with the retailers and businesses in the street, and I have already started that, and they're all, you know, quite comfortable and relaxed about that.
Awesome.
Mm.
And will your stalls be going across that pedestrian sort of roadway or staying kind of
Staying on
under
the pavement,
pavement?
starting at either side.
both sides?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
just try and keep it close. And there's sort of like there's a grey marker of tiles. So I'm figuring 2 per thing. So there's
Okay.
a room for people to have like 2 tables wide
Mhm.
and just mark it out with chalk and have a number and just watch that the traffic and parking and things like that are okay. And then when they're packing up, just make sure that they are observing, you know, not getting in the way of anybody.
And have you got a number of stall holders signed up for the
Just a
27th?
couple,
Yeah.
but I haven't advertised it yet.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm
So you have-
waiting to
okay,
do
cool.
that. And I think it'll just evolve and word of mouth and following onto some groups who, you know, market. So I'm sure it'll be quite easy to get people interested.
And do you know what the capacity of stall holders in that site is for your market? Like how
Um,
many can you take on based on
I
available space?
I'm thinking maybe about 20.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just keep it modest.
Okay.
Mm.
Cool.
And Andy at Retro, he will be able to just, I don't mind people having, you know, like sort of selling a bit of their stuff from home. But if we don't want it to be the trash and treasure style, because that's at Lions.
Yeah.
So people seem to want quality, handmade,
Okay.
that sort of thing.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. Very
Cool.
Well, that's great and perfect timing with the weather and the spring and warming
that's
up.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Oh, all the very best to you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh.
Right.
Turn that up.
Yes, thank you. Right. Simone Williams. How are you? Welcome. Right, you'll have to push that button as well. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Simone Williams. I'm a planner at Barker and Associates, and I'm here today assisting NZKGI, so New Zealand Kiwi Fruit Growers Association, with providing some planning feedback into the Plan Change 25. So a bit of context, I worked on numerous resource consent applications across the wider region, the Waikato region, many of which involve these type of structures that are proposed in the plan change. Also including shelterspout applications which have triggered resource consents in the Waipā district. I've also been involved in a consent that has faced legal challenges around the definition of shelterspouts, the vegetated shelterspouts, which has led to a widespread non-compliance of existing shelterspouts within the Waipā district. So most, like when you're driving along most rural roads, most of the shelterspouts that you're seeing are technically non-compliant. So looking at the plan change 25 on its surface, in my planning professional opinion, it's a positive step forward towards like certainty for the growers, and it's making it enables them to make significant investments in these crop protection structures, which are crucial for protecting the crops against biosecurity threats, adapting to climate resilience changes, and as well maximizing the potential productive potential of their crops themselves. That said, I do have some concerns with the way the plan change rules are drafted, particularly around the large setback requirements. From boundaries, these setbacks can lead to a significant loss of production lands, which is vital, especially considering Waipa district has 9% of New Zealand's highly productive soils within its district. That's a lot. As some growers here can probably explain the practical implications of what these setbacks mean in terms of like the loss of their production. So if you have a 4-meter setback, I know a grower that has lost 10 hectares of his 80-hectare property from these setbacks. So when you put that into that perspective, that's a lot of land. When you visit these sites, you'll see the setbacks don't necessarily provide visual relief. You know, that they're there, that you can't avoid them, they're obvious. But when in time, when the vegetated shelter belts are growing, they will obscure them, and you're not going to see them in the future. So yes, there is a visual impact in the interim while the vegetated shelter belts on the outside are growing, but in the future, you're not going to see them. So I guess that's why I'm suggesting, you know, why is such a large setback required in the first place? So that kind of leads into the fact that these setbacks don't align with the national policy statement of highly productive soils, where the emphasis is avoiding rural lifestyle development on highly productive land to prevent these land use conflicts. These land use conflicts are the essence of pretty much these setbacks and why they're proposed. The focus on the NPS HPL is ensuring or presuming the availability of this valuable soil for food production. And the setbacks could undermine that intention of the higher policy statement. In a comparison of the plan change to other district councils, the proposed setbacks are considerably higher than the ones that I've seen across the district. So I've looked at ones in obviously the Bay of Plenty where horticulture activities are more prevalent, but I've also evaluated district councils in Auckland and in Waikato. And you're consistently seeing setbacks that range from no setback to 5 meters. What is proposed in Plan Change 25 is looking at a minimum of 15 from internal 4 meters from internal boundaries, and it's the daylight rule from road boundaries, but there is a permitted of 15 meters as well. So linking back as a planning professional, I find some of the rules, like I just trying to explain to you, difficult to interpret, and particularly the road setback rules. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to glaze your eyes over them, but there's that shading requirements rule. And as a planning professional, I'm even struggling to interpret what that means for potential clients. And it's, in my eyes, I see that as how do growers, farmers, even neighbours that are concerned, read that rule in plain English and interpret how that is going to be implemented. Like, in my opinion, I'm like, okay, so to demonstrate compliance with the planning team, are they going to need to see sun studies? Is there certificate of compliance applications that are going to need to be had? You know, like it's kind of opening up, you know, a can of worms potentially. So yeah, ultimately, I think PC 25 is in the right direction. I want to kind of commend council for it taking in, because it is a problem that, you know, the growers here will kind of express that they've had. But I also kind of want to remind council what perspective these rules have been written from. We must remember that the rural zone is for the intent of growing food, and there is no other zone in our district that provides for that, you know. So like, I think when I read these rules, they're definitely from a perspective of amenity, but the actuality is that we've got a very high percentage of highly productive soil, and we should be really maximizing the production in our district. So that's pretty much what I want to raise here today. I've got some growers here behind me that will probably talk over their experiences with the development of their orchards in the district. Some might touch on the biosecurity threats that they're concerned of, because there's a whole range of reasons for why they use these structures, and climatic resilience, and challenges with rural lifestyle neighbours. Yeah, so that's me.
Thanks, Simone. Thank you. Well, do we have any questions for Simone or any clarifications on anything she said before we hear from the growers? Andrew.
Hi, Simone. Thanks for coming in. In other districts where the rules aren't supposed to be so restrictive, have they encountered any problems, or that like Waipā district is saying they're going to encounter, and therefore enforcing restrictive rules?
I'm not aware of any like compliance issues. I guess, you know, you've got the Bay of Plenty region. It's kind of, you know, it's expected activity in the rural zone. I think the trouble here is Waipā, that where it's been historically an agricultural based district, and now we're seeing horticultural activities. Well, there's been existing horticultural activities here, but now we're seeing more growers wanting to establish here. So and looking at the other district councils that have got these new rules in, like Waikato District Council, I'm unaware of any challenges they're faced with backlash, I guess, from neighbours. Yeah, but as a basis that they have 12-metre setbacks in the Waikato District Council, so they are still larger than the less than what this plan change is proposing, but larger than what the Bay of Plenty region has. Yeah, but Auckland has none. Yeah. I'm not sure if you've ever flown out of Auckland Airport before, but as an example, when you head south from Auckland Airport, there's a large kiwifruit orchard that's covered. And I was traveling to Palmy one day, and I looked out the window. I was like, "What? That's ridiculous!" Because that's right next to the coast. It was right next to the sea, and I was like, in my planning brain started going, I thought, oh gosh, like, how is that able to be that close? You know, like I'll have to check out the consent to see how they were able to establish there. So I rang up the duty planner, like wanting to see the consent, and they were like, no, it's permitted. Yeah.
Elise.
Thank you so much. That is incredibly helpful for us, just to hear your perspective and the groups that you represent. So yeah, often when we look at these documents, we don't necessarily have real life experience or real world experience with them and what those implications are. So really appreciate you coming along and sharing that with us. In terms of the setbacks, we've talked a lot about crop protection structures, that being the 15 metres. Do you see a problem with the shelter belt setback of 4 metres in this plan change as well?
Well, I guess it kind of is the same. It's the same package, really. It's you're eating into productive lands with these setbacks, and the growers can talk about how, you know, they successfully will have them on boundaries, and you see them. You drive along the rural area, and you commonly will see a barberry hedge in the middle of a paddock on a boundary or on the road boundary. So and even cryptomeria shelter belts on boundary. So it's kind of, I don't know, what's that setback trying to achieve? Why is a setback to a shelter belt? Yeah,
setbacks.
Yeah, collectively. Yeah. So yeah. So yeah.
And just that shade rule, it seems to be difficult
Yes,
to.
sorry, I do remember now. So the plan change proposes 4 metre setbacks to internal boundaries. And then the plan also proposes 15 metre setbacks from an internal boundary to the crop protection structure. So when you actually like draw the boundary and the shelter belt, the trees,
Yeah,
and then you have the distance. So you have this at 4 metres from the boundary, and then you have this at 15. You've got 11 metres in here. That's just land wastage,
It
as well
does.
as that.
I just got it in front of me. It did say if there was an existing shelter belt.
Yes.
Then there's no.
Yes, there's no, well, it's permitted, but, or if you have agreement with the neighbour and all that, those steps. But again, like a
Just
natural,
close it down.
it's, well, yeah, I guess like if someone is wanting to plant a new crop or
Yeah.
explore, you know, yeah, or even just new people coming to the district, you know, those are the setbacks you're working with. Yeah.
Okay, great. That's helpful. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, Simone. Is any further questions for her before we hear from some of the growers? No, thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate that.
No, all good.
Right, Mr. Gardner, like to hear from you next. Welcome. Nice to see you. You'll just have to push that button and then you're on.
Right.
That's it. Perfect. Welcome.
Yeah, good evening all, Mark. It's my name. I've been growing kiwi fruit in this area for quite a few years, since 1975. So it takes it back a bit. I'm proud to be a part of Cambridge, town of trees. And trees are what you need. You need shelter to grow kiwi fruit. And so I think it's a real mindset that you're facing, a change in mindset, because, you know, outside of Cambridge, other areas that grow crops and so on, there's no big deal about a shelter belt. It's part of the landscape. It's part of what we're dealing with. Land intensification has forced people to think about how they can grow more productivity in a given area. And that's what changed my mind back in time. I started down sheep farming and basically saw the need to grow more food per hectare for people. To feed the world, you need to intensify land production. So in order to do that, you have to be deliberate and ensure that crops can grow well, and particularly with kiwi fruit, they need shelter. So we want to see, as growers, we want to see is maximising of land use, being prudent and astute with land, not wasting it, not seeing it growing nothing but flax bushes and being mown and wasting, you know, fossil fuels on mowing ground that should be in production and so on. We want to see things thrive. And so we struck a problem with the archaic rules of council that basically anything over 2 metres was considered a building. So putting up shelter poles was so we had to apply for a retrospective consent, which is which seems a bit ludicrous, and it set off this chain reaction across the area about this great concern that was going to be a great white cloud of cloth go up, and it's going to go from green to white sort of thing. And so it became a bit scandalous and a bit of a scaremongering sort of episode. So it's unnecessary. It's just a matter of us realising that the land is going to be used for other things apart from dairy farming, sheep farming, and we need to put in rules and regulations that allow that to be used wisely and maximise our productive land. So I just my plea is for common sense, and that's with an open term, but an approach that is pro growth and pro production and pro bringing wealth to the country, and as least rules as possible. Let's work within the boundaries that we have and be responsible for what we have, and don't over-regulate things and don't make things unnecessarily complicated.
Great.
There's a lot more could be said. Richard's going to fill in a bit more.
Any questions for Mark? Comments, Philip?
Yep. Phil.
Thank you.
Mm.
Good to see you, Mark. Good to see you, Richard. A question: why does it have to be green shelter belts? Artificial, white. Sorry, artificial. Why can't it be green and black?
So there's not a problem with green being on the outside, and that's what people see, because you're not looking down from on top. But the idea of white is that it basically reflects light, and it's far more conducive to growth than anything that shades and dampens the growth, photosynthesis and so on. So on the sides, green, sure, stop the visibility. create a bit of a visibility barrier. But on the top, white is looked upon as a must from the point of view of not inhibiting growth. And generally speaking, you're only seeing the side. You're not seeing above 6 meters. So you can drive past heritage out here. It would be
flying past north.
well. That's right. Yeah. You see a lot of things when you're flying. If it's not all clouded out, then you don't see anything. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's good to see you both. Consensus on it too.
Thanks, Mark. Not all the land in the Waipa, although it is highly productive, 9%, not all of it's suitable for kiwi fruit.
That's right.
Maybe you could just extrapolate on that it's not going to take over the district and
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. And it hasn't done since 1975 either. So, but basically northerly facing free draining of frost-free type of positions is what is regarded as the best conditions of growing kiwi fruit. So that eliminates a lot of kiwi fruit, a lot of land in Waikato straight off. So that's more selected sites that you'll see it on. And it's not going to suddenly become a whiteout. That's one thing for sure. It's a licensed product. So you're growing the new varieties. So Zespri is maintaining strict growth regulations around how much is going to be produced so they can not overwhelmed in the marketplace. So there's no great immediate threat of it taking over.
It's a bit like a Quarry tree. You only go as far as south as this, or a bit further south than this. You've got a few farms down Oklahoma way and like that. There's some hot areas down there and not frost areas down there, or
people can be ambitious and grow it in areas that are suboptimal, and that's probably some cases in the Bay of Plenty as well. But generally speaking, the people will be fully selective about where they'll grow it because they don't want a failure and don't want to end up with the root cankers and so on and things falling over 10 years after they planted them. So people will be selective because it's a long-term investment.
Elise.
Thank you, Mark. Other than the setbacks, just to clarify, plan change 25, other than the setbacks, are there any other things in there that you think move away from a common sense approach? Are there any specifics in there that you're like, that doesn't align with?
Yeah, I mentioned shading and I mentioned the town of trees, and I think anywhere you drive in New Zealand, scenic drives is going to have shading. There's native bush, there's the most beautiful drives in Rotorua, through the lakes and so on. Anywhere, shading is, what's wrong with shading when you're driving? It's fantastic, it's wonderful, it's helping to absorb carbon dioxide, and so we want to encourage shade rather than tar seal, in terms of what's exposed to our, an endeavour to try and capture as much carbon sequestering. So that would be one thing. I don't think there needs to be a shading rule because that actually I would say creates an awful lot of problems. I mean, who's going to judge what shade, how many trees, this tree, that tree? It opens up a can of worms in terms of deciding what's shading, what shouldn't be shading. And everything that grows in New Zealand grows bigger than we were told that it would. So it's anything's potentially a shading sort of issue, just about.
Okay, thank you.
So that would be my one thing, and try not to have unnecessary setbacks that inhibit use of good productive land.
Yeah.
Any further questions for Mark? No, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Right, we'll hear from Blair and then Richard. Blair, welcome.
Hey everyone, I'm Blair Housley. And my family, we have an orchard in one Waipa district, and we've got one over in Katikati, just small ones. I'm not here to talk about the technicality side of things, more just how they protect us as growers and how important they are and how they're becoming. Just recently, just to talk about that, our orchard, so we're down by I don't know if any of you know Carry Point Road in Katikati. We had a big hailstorm on Sunday, and I can show you photos if you want. And we've just covered one block there, and the block we haven't covered, the leaves are just shredded. We walked through that yesterday, and there's just buds all over the ground. So, now we're trying to work out how much that's going to cost us. And that's another thing, as growers, we're up against it in so many different ways. We've got pest and disease. We've got, just fertilizer costs, everything, so anything that can help us, is great. And what Mark just said, we need to get high production, because and it's like every, primary industry at the moment, we need to get the most out of it, because we've got, only a small portion of land. And if we can't, produce effectively, then it's just not going to be, productive. You wouldn't have dressed it. I've just come from work, but I'm actually a chartered accountant, and I know every meter that you take back with those setbacks, how much that costs us. Like we have to mow it, we have to do all that, and it's so costly. And our costs just don't stop going up. Like labor keeps going up. So sorry, that's a bit off track, but yeah. So we've just had the hail damage, but the cover block we just been, I've got photos, and you can see it, and it's all sagging down because it's holding up the hail, and it's just perfect. So that will save us. Being farmers, we're all heavily, in debt. And so, you can't afford to have really bad years. It needs to be smooth, and this is the way to make it. And especially, I remember last year we had, here in the Waikato and over in Katikati, we had really bad December winds. That resulted in us pulling off 25% of the crop, just from fruit rub. So we pull, it's another expense to pull it off, and then you don't get paid for it. It's just, they make so much difference. With the block that we've got covered here, it just perfect. And not only that, also you get better numbers per block because you haven't got the fruit rub or anything like that. But yeah, I understand, it's a balancing act. You've got the other community users who, visually, don't see them as desirable. But yeah, it is rural land. By doing the shelters and everything like that, you can't even see our ones. And if you drive past Mark's down Kaipaki Road, you wouldn't even know it's there unless you're in a helicopter. So yeah, that's all I've really got to say, is just how important they are. And with climatic change, with all the wind and everything we're getting now, it's one thing that helps us sleep at night.
Right, thank you. And before you go,
Sorry.
was there anything in the plan change that you flagged that was problematic for you, or only because we'll be making a submission or I've been making lots of notes, and all of these things help us when we feedback?
Yeah, so for example, in Katikati, when we did ours, we just put it up we didn't need resource consent or anything. And over here, you've got to follow all the setback rules. Technically our shelter belts aren't compliant at the moment. And putting up, if we go to put up more artificial crop protection, we're going to have we have to go through the resource consent, and we don't know if we have to then set back our cover, it comes back to it again. We're going to have parts of our orchard that aren't protective, and that's obviously loss. I also forgot to mention, so we're actually down Mystery Creek Road. When we planted out the orchard one block a few years ago, we had hail the size of golf balls, and this was in January, and it took off all the leaves. You just go out there and it's just completely wiped out. The climate is it's changing, and it's becoming so unpredictable that these crop protections will. I don't know anyone now will be thinking about putting kiwi fruit in that won't want to put a cover on, just because there's so much financial investment that goes into doing a block, that you need to make sure that it is covered, or it is protected with this, because you just it's just you've got too much to lose.
Questions for Blair? Andrew? Oh, just push your mic.
Interaction with neighbours or people commenting on what you're doing, and
so not really. We're not assholes. Sorry, excuse my language. We're quite we're always talking to our neighbours. We're obviously regularly spraying, so we're consistently they like to keep updated. So we're telling them, what we're doing, and they realize like if, I recommend if, going into one of these covered blocks, there's just no wind. Like, so you can, when you it just like that, we spray only when the conditions are the best, but like there's just no wind, so you get no drift. Like, even so, just from that perspective, they're great. So the neighbors understand that. But, you work with your neighbors because obviously, you want to keep them on side. And so, yeah, we haven't had much trouble at all. Yeah. Yeah.
Further questions at all? No, thank you, Blair. That was great. Very interesting, valuable. Thank you. And Richard, welcome.
Last. Good evening. And do I press that, or was it already on? Just leave it alone. I'm not as fluent as my previous speaker, so I write a few notes. So bear with me. I've grown. I started out like Mark in sheep and cattle, in the late 70s, and believe it or not, we tossed up between horticulture and dairy. We thought, let's have what can we maximize on this, piece of land we've got, which wasn't large, and we chose horticulture. And started in kiwi fruit and I've grown that since, and also did 25 years in growing export apples as well. But the climate is better, believe it or not, in the Waikato than it is for apples and stone fruit. So the area, interesting enough, has grown horticulture crops for years. If you know Hamilton, a school called Southall School, next to it there's a road called Peach Grove Road. That was an orchard and got swallowed up by town. And that, as you're aware, happens all the way. I know councils are very mindful of losing productive land. And if you look at, some of the comments that we've read online on some of the, that we've looked at, but if you go out into the new suburbs or the new industrial zones like Hautapu, which, until recently was highly productive land. And I'm not against change, as long as it's measured and it's practical. But, we talk about flying out of Hamilton. I'm pretty sure if you fly out that way over the APL building, you'll see it. And, and that's good because it's employing people, and it's progress. And they're going to put another couple up, hopefully, from what I hear. So you sort of look at it and say, right, let's step back. So in my notes, in the plan change 25, it is timely. I did talk to the council when we first started looking at artificial crop structures 5 or 6 years ago, and it was probably just in the too hard basket at that stage, because they were hoping people would be practical and look at things in a logical manner. Like the original plan was 6 metre high within 30 metres, and that worked for probably 15 or 20 years. But, these days people want to get into the details, so we had to move on. It's not about one rural group. I see in a lot of the chat things. It's not about one group. When you look around, there's sheep, beef, still, dairy, horticulture, horse studs. I went and measured a couple of horse stud fences just a couple of years ago. They were non-compliant because they were over 2 metres tall, on wood, because that's, we've just got stuck. And now the good thing is that you're considering changing under change, is it 25? Plan change 25. So that's quite a positive. Hort New Zealand, I saw a draft copy, I think today, of a very well thought out submission. So it's worth reading that because they do go back and give you good detail on what's happening in every other district council as far as a range of, not necessarily horticulture, but how they deal with setback. Okay, so that's a well-written document, which I think they're submitting to council. Central government has already commented about the building industry and the fact that we all have different building rules all around New Zealand, and is it 68 different councils? They've suggested that in that industry that they come together and have common ground, which saves compliance cost, and that will hopefully keep rate rises to a minimum or costs down. but you've got that, government commenting already. So you've got an opportunity here in Waipa to look at other councils and say, is that sensible? Can we live with that? There's always going to be a trade-off, but hopefully a positive one. Wasting, the setbacks, not a good idea, not really. When you look at the amount of land you can use, and then you go and look at the other councils, and they range between 1 metre and 4, depending on certain things. Artificial shelters placed, if you had an evergreen shelter on the road boundary and had artificial behind it, in my opinion, the colour doesn't then matter. It could be white on the side because it's hidden by green. And I know when we had a consent years ago from Waipa for a pack house building, we put the building up, but they said, look, you have to plant evergreen shelter there, even though there was a white panel. Over time, that grew up. So it's just like a new suburb out in the country that looks awful to start with, and after 10 years, blends in. So maybe the consideration should be given that it doesn't have to be, if you have planted evergreen shelter in front, it could be white on the side. Reiterating what Mark said about, white, it's there to, enhance growth. Just like probably solar panels are all black, there's a reason for that, and there's a reason for white, horizontal shelter. But white on the side is fine if it's hidden behind other. So consider that in what you're looking at. Height restrictions around power lines was an interesting one. I didn't know you guys wanted to get really into that because, again, it adds compliance cost. Why would you want to get involved with Well Networks or Waipa Networks business? They're known to be ruthless. If you don't cut your shelter, they just come in and do it and send your bill, and they put the rock wheelers on you. They're brutal. So down our road, which is McGregor Road, there are people who've got shelter next to power lines. At least 3 I can think of, 4, but they all keep them trimmed. So why, I challenge you, why would you want to get involved in that? Let someone else fight that battle. The suggestion I had actually in my notes was maybe you put artificial shelter below a power line, because that's more practical. Everybody would agree that Well Networks would be, because you're not going to have to worry about trees growing. And it's not under every, you're not going to have kilometres of it. It's only in, certain areas. So that would be worth looking at. Just on going here, here's my, that document there just showing you can see it online. It's Dairy NZ. I can leave that with you. But that's Dairy NZ. That's their, what they call it, not production, their research arm. Is that correct? Dairy NZ, any dairy farmers? Yep, they're nodding. That's promoting shelter to, apart from, animal welfare. There's clear evidence in that document that it enhances grass production. Whereas I had some people saying, oh, shelters are bad. Well, actually, their own organisation with solid research shows that actually, shelter belts at certain heights and things like that, and some of those are 30 metres high when they're in detail, when you read it, right? Increase, production. So they are positive. There's been some work just published yesterday. Well, I got it. It's in the excerpt from, you can go on the latest kiwifruit journal. That's carbon. And they've started the studies of carbon on what cryptomeria shelter belts do. And they sequester far more carbon than just normal grass. And I think the yellow was cryptomeria in there. Anyway, a lot more stuff than that, but from an environmental point of view. On top of that, Hort New Zealand also have been talking to central government to get, you talk about sequestering carbon in pine trees and native trees. They want shelter belts added to it because, we've had to cut out a few the other day, but they were as big as a pine tree in girth. That's quite, sequestered carbon, so it's good for the environment. On top of that, they're now doing research to show that underneath those, directly around them, the carbon storage, it's up to like 80 odd tonne a hectare. These are normal kiwifruit vines, which also are ahead of grass, but grass does sequester as well. So it's just getting central government, online, on side to things like that. I think one of the things, education, Bay of Plenty, when I talked to a few mates over there, their council has a really good education policy for people who live in rural business areas. And whether or not they are orchardists or lifestyle people there, they actually do say, if you're moving in on your rates, this is what you expect. You're working in a rural business environment. Please take note. And they're quite firm but polite. And I think it's unintended. Council could look at, making people aware that where they live. It's not rural residential. It's not city. It's a rural business environment. I had a case recently last year. Guy rang me up and someone had put a house next to a dairy farm that had been there for 80 years. And they rang up the council, I'm told, and complained about the noise at 5 o'clock because they were milking. So it's about education rather than, we laugh and it's good to laugh. But, you possibly council should have a policy, simple one, about educating people who live in rural areas, or even educating their own people in the city when they drive through. Hey, this is the reason. That's short about, Marmorated stink bug. That's a particularly nasty thing. It comes in on machinery, cars, tourists bring it in their suitcases. So we had about 140 interceptions. It's worse than some of the things floating around. Trying to remember some of them. It attacks 167 groups of food. So every bit of food you think loves maize and sweet corn, but all other food groups. And when it puts its little beak into the fruit, into your lemon tree at home, right? It tastes awful. Think of that moldy core you get in an apple sometimes. You get one very occasionally and you bite and go, well, this thing does that. And it makes the fruit drop off. So it's not, we all talk about food. We need it. It actually attacks everything. That hives up in the winter if it ever gets established here. And it's called marmorated stink bug because it gets under your eaves of your nice wooden houses and it stinks. So New Zealand government finally got their I was going to say something together, and have been quite serious on it. It used to be a 5-month season, 4 months now, and 6-7 months. That they have very vigilant. We had 147 intercepts last year or this current season, but it needs a certain amount to build up and hive and spreads, and it's marching across places. So my point on marmorated stink bug, where they've got it, they've actually covered just about every crop. So you think of the grape industry, which is huge, 40,000 hectares. Kiwi fruits, 15, apples, 12, outdoor grown tomatoes. They cover them. It's one of the tools. They use other tools as well, but the primary one is covering. And so we don't, want that in our environment here. So some of the things like when we've put some cover up and we've designed it for marmorated stink bug, trying to forward think and do that. And a number of growers are doing that.
Richard, I'm just aware of our time.
That's
So
about it.
you're able to
Got
sum
that.
up? Great.
Sum
Any
it up.
questions,
Keep it practical.
Richard? Yeah, good. Mike.
Please. Okay.
I've just got one, and since meeting all you a few weeks ago at Mark's place, I've been considering this. The internal setbacks, we've talked about nothing 1-4 meters. From a practical point of view, what works? Because at 4, you can drive a trimmer down. 3, you probably can. 1, I sort of don't get. And how does that work?
Oh, when you say 1 meter setback.
Yeah. So
that's
just
on the boundary, just so.
This is to a natural
So it's probably who
shelter.
owns, if you put it on the boundary, you would then have a problem from your legal brain. Who owns it? If you go 1 meter back, right, you own it.
But you've still got to trim it off your neighbour's place, right?
Correct. Well, you have an agreement. So if you go back to that and you look at Barbary hedges were planted in the 40s and 50s, and you drive around Waipa now, and there's still Barbary hedges with neighbours. And so they've worked out over the years who does what. I suspect one person does their side and the other. And the following year, every second year, one person pays for the topping. I don't know. But so they've resolved that for the last 60 years. So we shouldn't reinvent something. But I think the 1 metre setback would be, not just me thinking, would be the fact that who owns it. You know, rather than if it's right on the boundary, someone could just go and cut it. The other neighbour could say, well, it's actually on my boundary, I'm going to cut it. But, you know, I had a good friend in the Bay, and, you know, you come to an arrangement, and he said, look, you're a dairy farmer, we'll pay, you know, cut your side, and you put it in writing. You work with people. You know what I mean? We've done some plantings in the last 6 or 7 years where we stepped back and took it back, and that's probably why they used the 4 metre. Because I thought, well, we'll be try and be nice neighbours, and that all backfired in the end anyway. Because every time we did something, the goalposts moved for us, you know. So in the end, it was, you know, but we still did set those back. But I would say internal boundaries, you know, should be, you know, call it 1 metre back for that one reason. On the road, you know, Waipa, does Waipa run the road? Frontage, I suppose they do, don't they? Okay. Well, that should be practical. You can obviously prune most of that. And then you have, I think some of that in that plan 25, they changed, they got it straight off the forestry. Tell me if I'm wrong, but it looked very familiar to a forestry setback. Now, when I drive over the deviation occasionally to Raglan, they've got mature trees there about 15 metres, and that whole road's in shade all day in the winter. So just popping it in there doesn't necessarily mean you're going to solve anything at all. You know, driving past native bush all the time. So the setback, you know, and remember, pine trees are 30 metres. And, you know, the shelter belt things are what maybe most people get them trimmed to, you know, 9 metres. That's the way.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay.
That's great.
Any other question?
No, that's great. Thank you so
I'll
much. I
turn that off.
appreciate your time. That's a lot of valuable information for us. Really great. Yeah, thank you so much. Yes. Wonderful. Always welcome to stay. Yeah. There's hours of good stuff to come. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Right, that's us for our public forum. So I'm going to move quickly through our confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. So we're just confirming that our minutes of our meeting held on the 12th of September as circulated in the agenda are true and correct. I'm happy. Thank you, Elise, and I'll second that. Right, Melissa, welcome. Take your time. It was very good, wasn't it? Yeah. Right. Melissa is here to speak to us on the long-term plan progress report. Obviously, today there was a very long and detailed and intense financial strategy workshop. The purpose of Melissa's report is just to give us an update. It is not for her to go through some of those massive details that were in our workshop. It's high-level stuff. She's very happy to answer questions. Yep. And I would encourage all of you, if you can, to watch that workshop today. And yeah, we'll go from there. But welcome, Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you. So since the previous meeting, we've had 2 LTP workshops, as Jim mentioned. One was today, but the other one as part of this package was actually on Monday. So it's been a pretty big week for the LTP. So the first workshop on Monday was basically to feed into the workshop today, and it sought clarification on some of the assumptions to feed into the scenario modelling that was done today. So I guess there was 3 kind of key projects that were discussed on Monday. One of them was the curbside refuse service, and the next one was Matasidigen Drive, which is public excluded, so I can't go into too much detail about that. And then another one, which was also public excluded on the Cambridge Water Tower. So basically it was to enable elected members to have a discussion on those things that would help inform the workshop discussion today on scenario modelling. So essentially what was presented today was scenarios for consideration, which looked at a number of metrics. So they looked at debt levels, affordability, and rating levels. And it was a discussion really around striking the balance between each of those 3 metrics. And so where we kind of landed, or where elected members kind of landed, was to look at what they're kind of calling scenario 4. So it was a scenario that striked the balance between those metrics, but also looked at deferring the curbside refuse service out to year 4. We absolutely acknowledge that it's a very fast moving, off the back of today's workshop, and that scenario does need further refinement. So that will be presented back to elected members in November. But before that, there is a workshop scheduled on the 29th of October to cover off the financial policies. So that's kind of a quick summary of this week's workshops, and then the plan moving forward. Happy to take questions.
Thanks, Melissa. Right. Right. Questions on Andrew?
Just at a time frame of further consultation, you said for elected members, some of these workshops, when do the public really get to hear about and get to have a say and get involved?
So the formal consultation will be taking place in March next year, but we will be looking to do, I guess, series of media releases and stuff leading up to that as well, just to try and keep the community up to date with what we're discussing.
Decisions are being made prior to March by elected members on the outcome of for example, rates rises?
No, so we have to go out to the public with a proposal, and that forms the basis of consultation.
Yes, that's what the elected members are doing. They're workshopping all the different scenarios, all the different options as representatives. And then you turn me on. And then staff come out with the consultation document, and that's when they hear from the public.
I heard Steph say today, for example, that there's a number of hurdles that have to be achieved by certain dates this side of Christmas to progress to be able to achieve the outcomes you want in March. That kind of says to me that if the public don't hear about it until March, how can anything be changed if there's hurdles to be decided today? Just help me understand that, please.
So through the chair, I guess a different approach that we're taking with the development of this long-term plan is that we're involving the community board chairs in the workshops that are being held to shape or provide guidance to staff to shape draft budgets. Melissa's mentioned that a very detailed workshop today looking at scenarios and the development of our financial strategy. The team will then be working to further detail financial modelling and coming back in early November, as Melissa mentioned, with a view to presenting a draft budget to the elected members for approval by the end of the calendar year, then coming back to council for adoption or approval to consult at the beginning of March. So that is a legislated process that we're required to formally consult on a consultation document in March and April. So community boards have a role to play too in communicating to your communities about what work is underway. As you're also aware, we're currently out consulting with the community on Aauki, our spatial plan that's going to drive all of our future planning, prioritisation, investment and funding. That's an opportunity for councillors, mayor and community board representatives to connect with our towns and our rural and our smaller villages, as well as focusing on Aauki. There are other work streams that are underway, but it's also an opportunity for connection and conversation about what is happening across council as a whole.
An example was a question by Councillor Roger Gordon, who stated that, could we look at levels of service reduction in council? And what I took from Steph's reply was there really is not the time to do that. We have to be very serious if we were going to revisit that at all. Could you comment on that, please?
So through the chair, you may be aware that this long-term plan actually started in development. We were developing a 24-34 long-term plan. So a lot of work went into that. And then in March of this year, the decision was made to progress an enhanced annual plan. So we haven't started with a blank canvas. The work that was undertaken for the 24-34 long-term plan was our starting point for this long-term plan. We have been working with elected members and they have provided guidance in terms of levels of service, and the direction that was provided that was referenced in the workshop today was that elected members aren't looking for substantive changes to levels of service. I guess the other thing just to note with this long-term plan, because we opted to go down an enhanced annual plan route, it means that we're developing a long-term plan within a much tighter time frame than what would ordinarily apply. Ordinarily, it's a 3-yearly cycle, but we've started, obviously, we were working on an enhanced annual plan that was approved at the end of June 2024, and now we're working to complete a long-term plan for adoption by 30 June 2025. So a shortened time frame.
Thanks, Kirsty. Further questions? I'll go to Alana and then come back to Andrew.
Sorry, it might be a silly question. I haven't managed to watch the entire workshop yet, but just checking that scenario 4, is that based on the kind of no frills idea, no big projects? Is that where we're at the moment?
When you say no projects, are you talking about the kind of the big?
Yeah, sorry, I mean,
library
yeah, like library, town hall stuff.
Yeah,
town
so all of those projects were deferred for, I guess, the capital side of those projects, but through a previous workshop, the direction provided to staff was to add in some operational funding to help keep those projects alive. Yeah.
The level of rates increases, I think the current year is at 14.8. The first year proposed is around 17. The next year after that is it 10 or 12? And then after that, 5, then 2, 2, 2. Is that unprecedented? Have we had this before, ever, in the council?
Through the chair, I think it's really important to note that there has been no decision made in relation to those rates increases. Direction can be provided at workshops, but no decisions can be made. Elected members have provided guidance today to staff to further explore a possible scenario. So we've been fully transparent. All of the scenarios that were presented and discussed today are publicly available on our website in a detailed paper and presentation. I think the comment was made today that when we started developing our 24-34 long-term plan, we were signalling in that double-digit rates increases. So it's not unexpected. In terms of unprecedented, I don't know that I'd like to make that statement, but the situation that we're working in is unprecedented. We haven't encountered this before in terms of, just those economic drivers in terms of inflation, interest rates, in terms of the impacts of COVID-19 that we're still seeing, the global economic impacts on New Zealand as a whole, right part that slowdown in growth. So I think we need to consider all of those things, but elected members have been really clear with us that we need to consider affordability and the affordability not only of council as an organisation, but affordability for our ratepayers. So that lens has been applied across all of the scenarios.
I feel like it is unprecedented, and I feel like in response, the council should show the community that they are prepared to take unprecedented or significant steps to reduce the affordability, either to increase the affordability or reduce the burden on them due to their decisions. And that might include, as Councillor Gordon suggested, or a number of ratepayers have said to me, the councils need to look at their business and what they're doing.
So through the chair, significant work has been undertaken through the development of the 24-34 long-term plan and the work that is currently underway with the 25-34 long-term plan in terms of looking at our capital projects, looking at our operation expenditure projects, and also looking at our operating expenditure. So there have been significant revisions that have been made over a period of time. And I think there was discussion today that staff are going to go away and look at what more might be done. We have a new CE. We're focused on organisational excellence and improvement. And look, there has been a directive provided to look particularly at that year one rates increase. Thank you.
Further questions, comments, any thoughts? Yep. Yeah, Andrew.
I looked on the Cambridge News because I read the paper, and a couple of years ago I was sure that we were getting articles about how well positioned Waipara is, how low a debt we have. Aren't we the envy of other councils in New Zealand? And Kirsty gave reasons why that might have changed. But my point is, and I quote, like Ken Morris said, that they propose, and this is in 2021, that the annual increase in rates across the district is going to be 1.8% for 10 years, with a maximum average increase of 4.2% in the first 2 years. And that was 3 years ago. And this is the same people with the best modelling and the best intentions telling us what they think the plan is. And our debt has gone from, don't quote me on this, but you could help me, 150 million to planned of close to 600 million since then, and we're going up to 85% of our debt headroom, yet our debt has increased by over 150% with our best intentions. I think it's really risky and it's not prudent to go that close to debt headroom when, I'll just restate what I said, our debt's gone up without planning, without our knowing, by 150%, and we're going up to 15% of our debt ceiling. Like, with our best modelling, we couldn't forecast that. So we're going to go within 15% of our maximum limit. What happens when it goes up another 100%? We can't model that. That could happen. It just happened. And Ken Morris said it wouldn't happen. Can you comment on that, please?
I don't feel comfortable commenting on that. The only thing I would make is that I've mentioned the current conditions. We are a tier growth council, so there have been significant growth pressures on the council. That's probably as much as I'd like to say on that.
That's okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Michael, Philip, do you have any comments that you'd like to make as elected members?
If you take a look at the stuff available today, is the debt bridge online, or is it? Yeah. Okay. You'll see there's a debt bridge there that explains.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, good. Okay. And if you look at the time we spent discussing that, there was a fair bit of discussion around that. Look, I agree with a lot of what you've said. And I think I made the comment today that obviously we can't do that again, what's happened over the last 4 years, and that we need to apply really good governance to our finances, and particularly the accumulation of debt going in from here, okay? So here you agree, and that's probably all I need to say on debt right at the moment.
The debt, as I mentioned, was going from under 200 million up to 600 million, and Councillor Gordon, totaled that $260 million of that, 60% of that increase in debt is going to be related to growth. Kirsty, we're going to segue into Aauki and shortly, and the community was asked on 5 different proposals about the future of our district, and 4 of those relate to significant growth. And it being really quite a positive thing. Here we are, we've had explosive growth. We're going to be telling the people in the same story that it's costing us $260 million. We're going very close to our debt ceiling, and our rates are going up by 14, 17, 12 and 5% the next 4 years.
Mike, I'm happy if you want to comment further if
Through the
Kirsty's?
chair, I didn't actually think there was a question in that, that I need to answer.
Okay, that's fine. I'm happy with
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
Mike, do you want to comment any further or?
You know, I would say that growth has not been the panacea of everything that we're looking for in our community that is perhaps advertised to us. That people in our, okay, this is a bit of a statement first. You know, when you think long and hard about our growth aspirations and our key values and or outcomes that the council wants for the Waipa district, there's a clear practical case study that's just happened that shows that it's not everything that it's panned out to be. The council is in a position where growth on a rising plane has supported their objectives. When the tide goes out, it has gone badly wrong. And I think that we need to allow for both these scenarios to be accounted for in the future. And I question whether we are taking that seriously.
I'll go to you, Mike, and then Elise.
So just, I'd respond with the comment, you made the point that council had growth aspirations. I don't think that's entirely true. We are required to cater for a certain amount of growth, okay? It's mandated by central government that we have to provide growth space, particularly as a tier 1 territorial authority. So we're manoeuvring in this tight space where you have the push from the government to keep opening up land and housing ability to cater for growth and population. Mandated, we have to do, okay? At the same time, you've got balance sheet constraint. So you've got debt limits that, as you've alluded to, we are pretty close to at the moment. And for a few years, they are a sort of a significant factor on our horizon. And then you also have another constraint in community affordability, which we're now increasingly taking very seriously. And that is defined as people's, the percentage of median household income expended on the waters is up to, or should be under 2%, and on all council services, including waters, should be under 5%. So between balance sheet constraint, affordability constraint, and requirements being enforced upon us by central government, we are operating in that tight space with limited ability to manoeuvre, and that's the scenarios that you observe. They are all measured against those various constraints and requirements upon us. Okay.
The other thing too is there's a lot of outstanding.
I'll come to Elise next and then you, and I'll come straight to you. Thank you. It's all right. You will come back to you.
Come back, thanks. Through the chair. Thank you. I was always under the, well, I feel like we hear that statement, growth pays for growth. And that means that ideally if we grow, we can accommodate that. I was under the understanding that that hasn't kind of happened in the last few years with all the cells that have been opened up haven't necessarily generated the income that they were expected to. Am I right in assuming that, Mike? And does that mean that that will right itself in time as they become further developed?
Look, really happy to keep answering these questions.
Yeah,
by the way.
please. I'm very happy for you to keep asking these
This
questions.
is a good discussion, and I'm happy to keep going, and I'm sure you are too, Philip, and staff. Yep. Okay, so it's one of our fundamental principles that, as far as possible, growth pays for growth in time. Okay, because there's a timing issue here. You've plenty of times seen the maps about all the growth cells. And there's a really it's a really heavily kind of regulated regime for how we run our development contribution regime to recover development costs as those growth cells are taken up. Now, there's a lot of stuff that you have to build now, really long-lived assets that will cater for decades of growth. We pay for them now, but we only get full cost recovery when every growth cell that piece of infrastructure was built to cater is full. Cambridge Wastewater Treatment Plant is a very easiest example. It's around about $100 million investment. 33% of that, so 33 million bucks, is considered growth expense, okay? And it pretty much services all the new growth cells around the place. And, you know, that is not going to reach capacity for decades. So it's that timing issue. And in the meantime, the cost of that piece of kit sits on our balance sheet, okay? Now, up till now, we've had the balance sheet capacity to absorb it. You could just, keep putting it on. It's debt to us. You know you're going to get paid one day. And bear in mind, the development contributions also include interest. So include the financing cost. But we've become increasingly balance sheet constrained. And that's led us to this tight position that we've sort of got to. Now, some of that is because growth has been a little lower than expected. These things are hard to forecast, you know, no one can accurately predict the future. So if you look on the debt bridge, you'll see one of the component parts of how come the debt's gone from there to there is less DC revenue than forecast 4 years ago. But you've also got to bear in mind that if something's not in our long-term plan, you can't recover DC. You can't not rate it. It can't be in a DC, okay? So our long-term plan has to be forward-looking enough and include all these growth projects that we want to include in the DC regime. And if it's not, you don't get cost recovery, and it's not fair, and you're not holding true to your principle of growth pays for growth as much as possible over time. So it's quite a complicated piece of work. The more you get into this, the more you realize the complexities. So have I answered your question about? So
the main question was, yes, development contributions have been slower, but as those growth cells fill up, will we recover that cost? Will that have a positive impact on rates slowing down, potentially slowing down as time goes on? Just to Andrew's point of growth seems to be exploding and costing us. Is that only for that short-term kind of growing pain scenario where we've developed this infrastructure but haven't actually recovered the cost, and we may yet still recover the cost?
We will recover the cost. So the DC regime is as good as it can be, and it's constantly revisited and it constantly iterates. So we, as far as is legally possible, recover the DCs. In the meantime, it's sitting on our balance sheet, which is causing us some pain. Okay. But at the end of the day, it does net out. It does come through.
Okay. One more question.
Through the chair, for those of you that haven't looked at the workshop, I'd encourage you to do so. So we had a presentation today from Brad Olson of Infometrics, who spoke also about kind of that slowdown in growth, the timing for capital projects, and basically, you know, don't stop all capital project development because it's a bigger job then once that growth picks up. So it's definitely worth, in terms of the cost of that. So definitely worth watching that if you haven't already. And just another point, so Mike's mentioned about the growth cells, and they are defined within our Waipa 2050 growth strategy. That is a piece of work that will be reviewed as a priority. I think, is it in year 2 of the LTP, Melissa? So we will be looking at that through Aauki. We are predicting that growth will be contained within the current growth cells, but for Uhupu and potentially Cambridge. But as best, that is our planning guide for future growth development. And as I say, we will be revisiting that in year 2 of the LTP. Thank you.
Right, back to Philip and then back to Elise again.
Yeah, there's a lot of outstanding DCs, and that's because of the market has slowed down, but as it will pick up, that will increase. But we talked about the other day, there's going to be a review on the DC. There has to be a review on the DC. That's quite soon, isn't it?
So through the chair, we're required to,
Sorry.
Through the chair, we are reviewing the development contributions policy as part of the development of this long-term plan, the policy and also the rates of those DCs. And so there'll be an opportunity for feedback on this.
Anything further? Philip? No? Good. Right, Elise?
Might be a silly question, but when we talk about increasing our debt ceiling, borrowing more money, who does council borrow money from?
The local government funding authority, which is it's a grouping of central government and all the territorial authorities that come together, and we collectively borrow billions at very close to government rates. So the rates are phenomenally good because it's the next best rated debt to Crown debt. So that's where it comes from.
Where do they get their money from?
They go straight to the money markets, offshore and stuff, you know, big time, because it's billions at a time. Yeah.
Andrew?
To Elisa's point, you know, about discussion about growth, paying for growth, with the asterisks over time, you know, reserves have been used to fund capital projects. Is that correct? Reserve funding?
Look, so council runs reserves sort of based on activity classes, because you know when you're rated for particular activities, and whatever you're rated for, it has to be spent on that. But obviously, you know, income and expenditure are a bit lumpy, so we run a reserves program. So say you know, you've been paying your water bill, and that includes, for example, the depreciation on the water assets, and over time that'll be spent on renewals, but it's not spent every year, right? You know, it's a bit lumpy, so it gets held in reserves. Now they're not what you imagine, they're not real cash reserves, but they are accounting reserves, and within the organisation there's an internal lending and borrowing scheme between the different activity classes to reduce our overall cost. So you don't want to be sitting on a $2 million reserve here and going to market and borrowing 2 million there. You're better off to borrow off yourself. So it's a little bit complicated to understand internal reserve accounting. It's something
Mike, sorry, he's just turned you off.
something I have been working at pretty hard to understand it again. But
Sorry, Andrew, turn on.
They've been whittled away, and they're no longer there to provide for the funding that has been there recently. And this is relating to growth-induced capital projects.
So what you're referring to, there was some reserves used last year to keep the rates increased down to 14.8%, particularly some waters reserves were used. So they've been waters funds that had accumulated over the years, and it was considered a prudent time to use them because it was a pretty big, remember, this is water users' money that we're holding. So it's sort of their funds. So at an appropriate time, you pull down those reserves. Now, what of course is really happening, those reserves flow back into the water space, and council's overall borrowing program it is behind it, still borrowing it to get that. So okay, it is complicated, but 4 million of reserves pulled down, council borrowing goes up $4 million. External borrowing program. Okay, so like I say, it's hard to get your head around. I will take that offline with you if you like, and we can have a session with Ken, and if you want to try and get your head around it, because it's complicated.
Just about, you know, and you said if it's in the LTP, the development contribution, we'll pay that off over time, and you'll be net okay. But I know I do really query that, and we've got a application for a quarry, for example, and we're talking about truck movements through town and wear and tear on roads. You know, these are all related to growth, heavily related to growth, and they're not in the LTP. They're not funded through DCs, yet they are an associated cost of growth. And these are happenings all over. We've got a bridge that Cambridge wants to get built. That's not in the LTP at the moment, but there's, you know, that's one example, and there's probably 20 more things that are bustling, breaking at the seams in Cambridge that are not funded and are due for, there's a community need for more because of growth. Can you comment on how we're going to fund those things?
Yeah, I'm getting towards the edge of my knowledge. Okay, so I'll tell you when I'm running out of confidence.
It might be that a session with Ken is just where you need to get some of this information. I'm happy for you to carry on, Mike, but if you're at the
he's going to do a simple answer. It's very restrictive what you can include in a DC. This is under, I think it's under the Local Government Act. You can't just put in anything you want. I'm going to stop there. Tony Coots is the absolute master on this. He can tell you exactly what can and what cannot be put in a development contribution.
Right. Are there any more questions? I think we'll leave it there. I think anything further needs to be with probably Ken Morris himself, just to really get into it. Thank you so much. Massive day for you. We so appreciate you coming after such a huge day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mike, for, yeah, you're great at extrapolating some of those details. Yeah. Can have an extra little chocolate from the chocolate bar. Yes. Right. We just need to receive Melissa's report. I will move that, and Alana's going to second. Thank you very much. All in favour, please say aye. Thank you. Great, that's carried. And then we are now, thank you so much, David, for waiting. I'm so sorry. And thank you so much, Anna, for waiting online. You have been in the background for a long time, so I really appreciate that. We will welcome you now to talk about Karapiro Lake Domain Reserve Management Plan. Welcome. Then after this, guys, I'm going to adjourn for a little break, and then we'll get into Aauki. Welcome.
Kia ora. I'm David Varco, those who don't know me, and I'm the manager of the property services team. With me on Teams is Anna McArray. She is a exist consultant who's completing this project for us, and she's a very experienced parks planning professional. So I was going to talk a little bit more about the report, but due to the last conversation length, I'll shorten it down. So tonight we're just seeking from the Cambridge Community Board for them to appoint a member to help represent in a focus group to go through the Karapiro Lake Domain Reserve Management Plan Review, 2011 review, and a master plan. So that's what we're seeking from you tonight.
Thank you. Right. Anyone feel like this is in their wheelhouse and they would love to be part of this? I'm kind of looking at our local guy over here, our local on the ground guy. We're all wearing many hats, and that's part of this job.
I just actually had a question particularly about GL Events Limited and their length of lease. You know, it's quite long. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we went through a proper, I can talk about it. Not whether it's pertinent to the reserve management plan or not.
It's actually
anyway.
not. So I'm wondering whether this is actually something that, is it?
I mean, we can go, what would you like to know about it?
Oh, sorry, Andrew.
That fought tooth and nail to get a lease, and it was severely shortened, and I just find it interesting. They got quite a long lease off the bat. But and if you could just explain the rationale would help me.
I think stay away from specifics, David, if you can, and just talk around that process.
So it's not a lease; it's a managing services contract. So it's completely different. We have 13 leases out on site. 12 of them are community. Community leases pay a community fee, which is typically about $6 to $12 a year. And then an administrative fee. The managing services contract manages the ongoing day-to-day activities that are on the reserve. A 5x5x5 was a typical business decision that was approved through council. Just to align with that, the community leases does have a policy that says 5x5x5. As you know, the site's very, very busy. But there's no correlation between a community lease and the services managing contract.
Yes, so back to the appointment of someone on that focus group. I'm wondering whether you might be mildly conflicted with your dealings there.
I did, I've resigned from that position
Okay,
on the rowing club.
okay. Considering you're very local to there, is this something you'd be interested in getting involved with? Yep. Is there anyone else that had real interest in that? I only know that's kind of in your backyard a little bit. Okay. Yeah. How do you feel about that? Okay. Right. Thank you, David. Any other questions for David before he goes? Yes, I will. Yep. Any other questions while we've got him? No. All right. So we're going to make a resolution that we receive David's report, and we'll do it all at once, and that we appoint Andrew Myers as the Cambridge Community Board representative on the Karapiro Lake Domain Reserve Management Focus Group, Master Plan Focus Group. So I will move that. And a seconder? Have I done that right?
Just on that,
Sorry, hold on 1 second. Sorry. Oh, you have moved. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Well, I will second it then. Absolutely.
do you want a backup person to support Andrew? Because, with Fonterra and everything else, well,
Yep, he will be our appointed person, but that's up to you whether you want to, if you can cover him if he can't make meetings. Yeah.
I'd be happy to cover. Thanks for Andrew to support him.
Great
Because
gesture.
we were all wearing many hats outside of this room.
Mm.
And I can see the pressure on you actually. Just
Thank you, Philip. That's great. Yep.
I'm more than happy to support him.
Amazing. Thank you.
Probably across the other side of the dam.
Yep. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you so much, David. Appreciate your time. And again, sorry for keeping you waiting. Sorry about that. Okay, perfect. Right. We are going to take 10 minutes now, adjournment, just to have a little brain break because Aauki needs all of our attention. So let's do that for 10 minutes and we will come back at 7:45. Thank you. Thanks, Zoe. Right, welcome back, folks. Okay, yes, thank you. Right, I'd like to welcome Kirsty now for our Aauki consultation update. We have a lot to listen to, we have a lot to discuss, we have a lot to decide on. So I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone, and let's be very concise with our thoughts. Welcome, Kirsty.
Thank you through the chair. Just first of all, apologies from Vanessa, who as project manager would have very much liked to have been here and presented this report, but was at a community engagement event at Te Miro. So apologies. I'd like to respectfully request that the report be taken as read, and then I'll just highlight some key points. So thank you for your input into the development of Aauki. As you're aware, this is a project that has extended over a 4-year period. So working with mana whenua and iwi key stakeholders and the wider community, you inputted into and were part of events undertaken in February and March of last year. Since then, we have taken those more than 2,000 pieces of feedback. We worked with the University of Waikato, partnered with them to deliver an enhanced community participatory process and 4 World Cafe workshops. That group made recommendations to elected members in November of 2023. So the feedback together with those recommendations have been considered by the project team, who've been working to develop this version of draft documents. We've most recently in September engaged with mana whenua and iwi through 2 online hui and an in-person hui, and checked in with them, providing an overview as to what we've heard in terms of their aspirations, how we've responded to those, and there was a general level of support from those who attended the hui. The elected members through the PCG and then the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee at the beginning of October provided approval for us to commence a public consultation process, which started on the 4th of October and goes through until the 4th of November. So we're in the middle of, just have started a bit of I guess, a tour around the district, reconnecting with those towns and villages that we engaged with last year. It's not on the same scale. The purpose being to really seek input, feedback from the community around the 5 packages. So there are 5 packages of work that are proposed, and these really build on the themes that we saw through the development of the interim draft plan and the feedback that was provided. So they are future development and housing package, placemaking package, strategic work framework package, community places package, and karapiro program package. So within that, there are programs of work over the short, medium and long term, recognising that this is of course a 30-year strategy. So much of the early stages of work is further planning and strategy development. Recognising too that we can't deliver these programs of work on our own. We need to collaborate with others, so that there are a number of documents that are currently available on our website. There is an executive summary, there is the substantive plan, and then there is also the draft implementation plan. And this has really been written for our stakeholder partners who will work with us to deliver the programs of work. There is a consultation document also with, it leads you through questions on each of the 5 packages. I'd just like to speak to karapiro program package, because we have been asked as we've started our events on the western side of the district, why does karapiro have a package specifically? And that is because we've heard from the community about concerns relating to the village being severed from the school, severed by the state highway, the dam and the awa. So concerns around connectivity, around safety, and there are opportunities that are presented through the work that NZTA is undertaking with the improvements to the state highway that will potentially provide opportunities for us to improve connectivity and accessibility as well as safety, but it also potentially provides opportunity for ecotourism and cultural business activities, as well as improved connectivity and accessibility around Lake Karapiro itself. So that is why that has its own dedicated package as distinct from any other town or village. That's probably enough from me to speak to, but I'm happy to respond to any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Kirsty. Also, you all have these documents in front of you, which are the proposed resolutions and the submission form for you just to have a little look at. We do have a lot of resolutions here. I'm just wondering, let's go to questions for Kirsty first, and then we can go through these. Elise.
Thank you, Jo. Just thinking about how we workshop this discussion, like I know I've got like screeds of questions and I'm just mindful of time and how we share this around. Is there any certain way you want us to approach this as a team that might be more efficient? Is it that, do you want to give us sort of 5 minutes or per person to speak to Kirsty, and because we might end up capping off each other's things?
Yeah, that might be good. Or just to skim through what the resolutions are, and perhaps some of the questions could be orientated around what we need to know for those resolutions. But certainly, I mean, that just, a couple of those things that we're going to be asked to decide on.
Are you wanting to make that resolution, pass that resolution tonight, or do we have time to, as we've done in the past, to defer it to one of us?
Staff would prefer that we do this tonight if we can.
Okay.
I do have the authority afterwards to add any extra info in. So it's not a super hard and fast. It is preferable that we do go through all of these, but if there is maybe one that we're not so sure on, we can do that afterwards.
Okay.
But yeah, happy for you to ask your questions to Kirsty and then have a bit of a general discussion, and then we can come to these.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Just in terms of what you have got there in terms of the recommendations, they just follow the line of what's in the submission form. So directly replicates that, with the idea that as a group you would like to go and kind of finesse any responses, but it might be that, as you say, there are particular matters that you do need to think about more, and we can signal those as we go along.
Had just feedback to provide on it, if this was the right forum for that feedback, or does it need to be a resolution, or can it be a live discussion?
Very happy for you to give your feedback, and we'll just be mindful of the time and just let's do a couple of minutes kind of thing and then move on to these when we have to. Please go ahead.
Stripping, guys. Just got to think about what are my most important questions. Firstly, I would say wonderfully comprehensive package of information. As I was reading through it, I was like, okay, what do I want to ask? Oh, they've answered that. Oh, what do I want to ask? Oh, they've answered that. So really well done with comprehensively thinking like the user and being like, what do I want to know and what's not answered here? So there's not a lot of gaps for me upon working through it that you haven't already thought of and answered. So thank you for that. That's really helpful. I guess the main ones that I just wanted to, I'm just flicking through my notes, sorry, forgive me team, to make sure I get to the most important ones. Okay. So, a lot of the package of work is undertaking these more plans. We've got this big plan, we're going to undertake some more plans. And for some of them, they're brand new, but on balance, do we already have information that can guide action without having to redo a plan, understanding that it costs money to redo those plans, but also that it slows the process of taking action down? I mean, the only one I can really think of is the town concept refresh plan that's sitting there and kind of ready. There's some stuff that's ready to go and some things have been action, but yes, do we have information that we can take action from, or does everything have to start from scratch again?
So through the chair, absolutely not as starting from scratch. You're right, Elise, there is already great work that has been undertaken. You've cited the example of the town concept plan. Not all of our villages have have concept plans. So by way of example, Karapiro doesn't have one, Uhupu, and the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi one is well overdue for refresh. I think that was developed in or around about 2010. So whilst the one that we have for Cambridge has been reviewed quite recently, that's not the case through the district. So certainly Uhupu, we're anticipating high growth as Hamilton moves south. And Karapiro, where we've heard from the community about those severance issues, they are priority for planned development. But you're absolutely right. By way of example, in that strategic framework package, it's identified development of an economic wellbeing strategy, climate change strategy. So we have an economic development strategy. Again, that was developed in or around about 2012. When we're moving away from an economic development focus to a more holistic wellbeing focus, that work is already well progressed. Climate change, that's something new. By way of example, we had partially progressed a review of the environment strategy, but actually we've recognised that this climate change strategy trumps that. So yeah, we've also had a lot of great feedback provided from the community through the development of the 2131 LTP back in 2020. You may recall we went out and had a number of neighbourhood events, barbecues, where we engaged with the community at place, and obviously through the development of Aauki, those more than 2,000 pieces of feedback, the input of the community group. So there's amazing feedback to put into the development of these other projects. I guess Brad sitting here, there's one of the deliverables is a community needs assessment. Brad, your team have been screaming out for that for some time. We've got a number of different community facilities and places. Are they all being maximised to their full potential? Do they meet our future needs of our growing communities? Pirongia, by way of example, Pirongia Hall's feasibility study. How can we work more effectively and efficiently? So this planning will help us to ensure that we invest appropriately. Andrew has mentioned about, pressures on our communities, our ratepayers. The whole purpose of Aauki is providing a clear guide so that we've got clarity from our community about what's important, and we're prioritising then where we spend our dollar and how we work with partners to collaborate and spend their dollars.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you. The other question, I read that the document is live. It's not a static document set in stone, because as I read through this, I was thinking, how influential can the community be? How can the board continue to be on the direction of our town if we've got these big, expensive bodies of work that are defining that already? Is there space for that to evolve and change as we listen to our community without backtracking, wasting the money on the time that's been spent so far? A thought on that?
Yeah, so through the chair, what you see at the moment is documents, paper documents, and the intention has been right from the get-go that Aauki will be a live and interactive plan. So it will sit, there will be an electronic version. It is a spatial plan, so it will have, interactive mapping that will be updated. Our external environment is changing at pace, so we need to be responsive to that. One of the drivers for developing Aauki was that we had a number of different strategies and plans that were developed in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. We were really great at developing them. We weren't so great at implementing them, reviewing them, monitoring them. So as part of, we will get this over the line, in February of 2025. This will hopefully be adopted by our elected members. And then there is a whole program of work relating to the implementation of Aauki. So that will require a whole project management framework that will be put into place to have oversight of the implementation of Aauki, so that we are responsive, we are monitoring. There will be KPIs that we will be monitoring and reporting on.
Is that okay if I, Karen? I'll just shorten it, probably two more that seem relevant and helpful potentially. So reading through the detail, the demographics show that we're having a strong youth contingent in our population, which I think is really exciting. But I don't feel like I've seen actions regarding youth really strongly represented in Aauki. Is that something that will be fleshed out in those smaller, more detailed plans?
Yeah, so look, as part of the engagement that we undertook in February and March of last year, we had a workshop with a contingent of youth that were, I guess, fed in from local schools, but also different community organisations. And it was really insightful in terms of how they see themselves within our communities, and also how they want to engage with council and the community. Mayor Susan and elected members, when elected in October 2022, were really keen that we look at alternative ways of engaging with youth. So there is actually a piece of work underway currently that Sally is leading, and looking at ways of engaging. So and hearing from them as to what is important for them and how do they feed into council processes. So it's probably, I don't know the intimate detail of that piece of work. I've kind of been involved on the periphery. There is also work that's underway. I guess it's linked to the Anchor Institution Framework Implementation Plan, and the work that Joy Mickelson as Economic Development Advisor is leading, working with partners to shape up possible programs for delivery, focusing on transition from education to employment. So yeah, some great work that's currently underway in that space, and that will feed in to the implementation of Aauki. Yep.
Thank you. Doing well, Kirsty. A few more to go. Keeping them tight.
One more important one, because I just realised we've got quite a long agenda, and we'll.
One more. What's the most important thing? I can come back to you and ask other things. Two small ones. Two small. Is that okay? Yes.
I don't know the answers to everything. Like, I'm not a
You're quite
planner,
impressive
and,
though.
so please just
You're doing really well.
bear with.
The other thing I didn't feel like I saw represented strongly was conversation or narrative around embracing the awa in Cambridge. So obviously there's a lot about protecting the Waikato River, but not a lot about our township specifically kind of having better access with it. So I wondered if that was something that could be brought into the plan, or if that would be fleshed out better.
Through the chair, I think that's a really great point. And I know that there were some conversations through the engagement process, but I would encourage you to include that in your submission to us. And where would you be best to do that? I'm just looking. Potentially around that placemaking package and or the strategic framework package. I'm thinking particularly around the environment strategy, but also, placemaking.
Actually, it's a really nice segue into my only other question, which was regarding the placemaking package and the urban design guideline review not occurring until the medium term, 4 to 10 years. I feel like it's something that Cambridge has needed for the last 10 years. So that'd be something I don't know what you guys think about that, be thinking about bringing in earlier, unless there's a strong justification for it being in the medium term, to your knowledge.
No, through the chair, I think there is merit in you including that in your submission. And look, there have been conversations at the council table about providing guidance in respect of urban design and placemaking. So yeah, would welcome you including that in your submission. I think probably what I should have said specifically and didn't, and it flows on from the LTP conversation. There is a section within the consultation document on page 8, which references the financial constraints that we're operating under. So, you know, we're acknowledging that the work is phased, having regard to that. Obviously, we've talked about it being a live document, being responsive to change as resourcing becomes available, as we're able to, I guess, strengthen partnerships. So, yeah, this isn't, in terms of timing, there may be changes to timing and you can recommend that.
Great, thank you, Elise. No, they were great questions. Thank you. Any other burning questions for Kirsty before we get into our own discussion about our submission? Alana, Sue, Andrew, guys all right? Anything major? That's okay. We can seek further information from Vanessa.
Absolutely. Look, I'd encourage you, if you've got questions that arise, happy for you to email Vanessa and myself with those. Yeah, thank you.
Andrew, we might make you the last person and then we'll discuss.
Thank you. Thanks, Kirsty, for your hard work. A few questions as normal. You know, the whole document is driven towards our vision and our overarching goal. And I see that as being the home of champions. I just want to, you know, what does that mean to you? What is home champions? Who are the champions of Waipa? Who are we trying to deliver to?
So through the chair, I think when that was first developed, it was developed as part of our vision, but it really was a branding. When we went out to the community in 2020 as part of developing the 2131 long-term plan, we asked the community to provide us with feedback about our vision, which at that time was Waipa Home of Champions, building the future together. That's pretty generic. And we were challenged, well, that's a Cambridge thing. You know, Cambridge, Home of Champions, high performance sport, horses. But actually, so we had some really robust conversations with members of our community. And I guess the story that we told was that we aspire to be champions in terms of our environment. We are blessed with our, you know, our natural environment in terms of our Mona, our Awa, our peat lakes, you know, yeah, Mount Pirongia, Manatotiri, our biodiversity. So in terms of our environment, in terms of our culture, you know, the New Zealand land wars and the part that has played in our history, this cultural significance of this area. So we aspire to be cultural champions. And I guess, yeah, I mean, there are elements of that also in terms of high performance sport, but also in terms of how we connect with our communities. So we want to champion the work that we do right across the board in all areas, and our community outcomes are prefaced on those wellbeing, social, cultural, economic and environmental. So it isn't, we haven't taken a narrow view. Yeah, we endeavour to be the best that we can be. You know, our organisational values that guide how we as staff work, but also, you know, elected members seek to align to those. We are better together, we do the right thing, we strive to improve, you know, it all speaks to that.
Yeah, thank you. It really helps me understand, you know, and it's leading from the front, you know, you can visualize it succinctly. So it's good to know. You know, I represent a rural constituency, and I really feel, you know, they are partially champions of the Waipa as well. There was reference earlier, 9% of New Zealand's highly productive land, you know, dairy and more latterly horticulture's a significant role in being economic drivers of Waipa's success. I would like to see more reference to the rural scene in your documentation in the spatial plan. I see a lot about maybe urban communities dealing with the growth issues, smaller rural towns being mentioned, Ohaupo and Hanapuri, Pugiato, all this sort of thing, but I want to see more about the farming, the growers, the businesses out there, because I think they're a significant part of our community, and I want to see that reference more in your document. So that's just a statement.
So through the chair, I would encourage you to include that in your submission. So you'll see in there, there's reference under the strategic framework package to the development of an economic wellbeing strategy, and within that a focus on the rural economy, particularly recognising, we as Waipa are reliant on that. Having regard to the impacts of climate change and the need for us to consider diversification, what does that look like? Looking at, I think it came through loudly when we went to those smaller villages and to our towns too, the importance of that rural hinterland on those towns and villages. So yeah, that's something that you should be advocating, or I would encourage you to advocate to us to strengthen.
Joe, just quickly on that, if I may, the reason.
Sorry, was Kirsty still speaking? Are you still going? Oh, yes. Yeah, you've declared an interest in this one, I'm afraid.
Awesome, thanks. Just, help me understand the growth profile, and, there's an aging population in New Zealand, and our Aauki plan goes to 2050, and we're going to see a doubling of the aging population by 2050, and Cambridge is catering to that. Where does that leave us? I see the vision and the values. We referred to youth over here. We've got all these retirement villages coming to Cambridge. In 2050, this bulge is going to, it's going to naturally go away, and we're going to be left with something after the plan that maybe doesn't fit the plan that we've got today in terms of the age profile and the housing that we have on hand.
So through you, Madam Chair, as I prefaced a short time ago, I'm not a planner, but what it does, the demographic profiling highlights, as Elise mentioned, an increase in that youth population, particularly Māori youth population, and then the increase in over 65s. You're absolutely right, Andrew. It's a 30-year plan, so we are needing to focus particularly on those education and employment opportunities. There is also what we heard from the community and is signalled in terms of the future development and housing package. We heard about the, a growing direction or demand for intergenerational living. So within households, so multi-generations within households, but also then within communities, multi-generations. So rather than having a particular pocket of over 65s in one location and young families in another, actually what we heard from the community was that they wanted a more inclusive community environment with a mix. So we're looking, this does look at different housing typologies and to provide for that intergenerational living. But certainly, yes, focus on economy, on education and employment, and that is Aauki then drives, as I mentioned, the economic wellbeing strategy and work streams that flow out of that, as well as the anchor institution framework. So there is actually some significant work that is now underway, working with other partners such as Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, MSD, Smart Waikato, and large-scale businesses to develop programs to then be able to, and iwi, sorry, I've overlooked iwi, we're working with iwi to look at developing programs to then be able to access external funding.
Yeah, I love everything you say, and I hope we get to that stage. But just what I see in reality today is the growth that we have is in an aged care sector and large homes for affluent people, and that doesn't match at all with. And I find it really hard. We need some hard conversations. How are we going to turn the ship around? That would be my comment there.
Yeah, a champion is. We are encouraging everybody to be a champion in the term that they are alongside as a champion. Much as a knight of old had a champion alongside somebody who was, and I think that's what we're hopefully trying to get everybody to be a champion in that sense, rather than a champion winning the race. And I think that's
Thank you, sir. Good
the
point.
difference we need to get through, that we can all be champions.
Good point. Guys, what I might do is I might, only because we've got Dawn and David still here and the night is just going on and on. So what we might do is we might adjourn this item, hear from Dawn and David, come back to Aauki before my chair's report. That means we can hear from them, they can get on with their lives, and then and then we're only holding up you, Kirsty. I'm sorry. You're our sacrificial lamb. Is that okay with everyone? It also might give us a bit of time just to mull over some of those things just in the background. Yeah. Okay, well, when we come back, yeah, great. Okay, so in that case, we'll go to David for the 6 monthly community board reporting, or is that going to be you, Dawn? Both? Okay, sorry. Oh, sorry, it said Brian. Yes, Dawn. Okay, welcome. Apologies that it's so late.
Kia ora koutou. Yeah, we're happy to present the report. Sorry, you're right. It's been a long day. Yeah, happy to present the report, take it as read, and yeah, Dave and I are certainly happy to take any questions from members.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe through the
Andrew.
chair.
Oh, sorry.
Just maybe touching on Cambridge Connections, because I know that one
Yeah,
is
that would be great.
particularly of
Great update,
interest
thank
to the board. So I allude to a workshop that is planned in early November that we are taking to elected members and council. We're still working through the response to the project reset that we had a workshop on earlier in August. The workshop will be open to the public as it should be. We'll be working through the proposed project structure that we're looking at as part of the reset and the governance that will be put in place around that. The scope of the reset and what those options are available in terms of council whilst we're in a constrained financial environment but still wanting to achieve their right outcomes with our community, and alongside that what the right comms and engagement approach is to ensure. So all of those things are married together in terms of the where we land with the project, having the right governance in place, but then ensuring we've got those right mechanisms in place for a right level of engagement. So we've certainly heard a lot through the process. Alongside that, risks, funding, and working out our next steps in terms of appropriate timelines. So yeah, just a little bit more insight in terms of Cambridge Connections.
Thank you. That's great. Do you think, just a question on that, do you think there'll be some messaging for the community before Christmas, or is that a bit tight, do you think? I'm just thinking those summer months, sometimes, it'd be nice for people to start, thinking about what's next.
I think as a result of that workshop, we'll be able to let the community know in terms of what that looks like, probably what the governance structure will look like, and some sort of timeline with respect to where things are going to go from there. So yeah,
Thank you.
definitely would expect so.
Great, thank you. Andrew, you had a question.
There's a thing in here about the water tower. It's been accepted that be council decided to proceed with option 1, the removal of the water tower. Is there any more information to the community about the acceptance of that? Has a further cost been detailed or made public?
Yeah, so through the chair, just of light, we're turning it into the Leaning Tower of Cambridge, a tourist destination. No, sorry. So staff are working through a parallel process. One is around the removal of the tower, and the other one is around alternative methods of seismic strengthening. Both strains will require resource consent, and if or but it does end up in Environment Court, that process has to be followed through. So that's where we're at the moment.
There's a lot of noise about cycle lanes, and then I was just seeing here you're going to start work on a new one, Grey Street, and it's it's in the budget and it's going ahead. Just are you prepared for further talk, given the rates rises and things are going to be mooted around at the same time?
Through the chair, I guess this part of the project, it's still part of the climate emergency response funding from the government. So it's still largely government funded work. We see it as a pretty key piece of the puzzle in terms of provide, what we're trying to achieve, and it's for generations to come in terms of the particularly getting safe routes to school for kids, and really encouraging that behaviour change from younger children in terms of thinking walking and cycling to school is normal, safe and appropriate. So in terms of that, a lot of the work is centred here in Cambridge around the primary school here in Cambridge, or here in Wilson Street, and the other part is through to the middle school. And so that part of Grey Street we see is fairly integral in terms of making sure that we've got those linkages. That's what we consider the spine of it. And that was the project that we submitted to get the funding through the government with that. With respect to our linkages down through to Victoria Bridge, and originally we were looking at a much probably more impactful, I guess, in terms of the shared facilities right through to the bridge, but due to the fact that we're sort of starting to get to the near to the end of that funding available, it will be much more of a shared facility to get down to the bridge. But certainly as access through to the middle school, integral.
And it's so good to see those numbers as well that were just released on the users. That was amazing. And they're absolutely great, those cycleways, especially coming up down here. It's just awesome. Elise.
Through the chair, thank you. I was just going to respond to you, Andrew, and that pathway project came to us and we gave it some pretty strong thumbs up. So I think we need to be prepared to defend it as much as staff might need to be within our networks and things like that. So I think the community seemed to speak very positively about some of the actions that are taking place. So we should be prepared to go into bat alongside council for that particular pathway project. Through the chair, just regarding the Cambridge Water Tower, I know there was a vocal group of residents who were very engaged in that issue. Have they been coming along to that journey with you? And do you feel like there's been some good resolution around that issue with them?
Yeah, so through the chair, yeah, they do have a spokesperson. The spokesperson has met with the mayor, and then our project manager that we've got on track with us is meeting every time he's in town. So, and they're sharing some ideas that we're following up on, different technologies, different stuff from a lot of the stuff's overseas, so it's not available in New Zealand, but there are some options that have become available in New Zealand that we're investigating.
Great point too, Elise. Thank you. Anything further for Dawn and David before we say goodnight to them? No, amazing. Yes, thank you. Right, so we just need to receive Joe's report, 6-monthly community board reporting, service delivery and business support. Elise is going to move that. I'll second it. All in favour, please say aye. Great, that's carried. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for adjourning that item.
Thank you.
I'm very much
sorry.
appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you. Right, let's move through to the Sister Cities budget. Oh. She's staying. So we'll do 9 and 10 and then we'll come back. See you. Good night. Joe, I'll hand over to you. Oh, and please start thinking about if you're available to attend the Sister Cities conference on the 8th of November. Absolutely. Always. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you very much. So the purpose of this report is just to consider attendance by the community board members at the regional forum, and is to arrange for some reprinting of the Lekanwa brochure. So it is for attendance of all Cambridge community board members at the Regional Forum on the 8th of November. So approving that. And you've got your recommendation, be there for your conference and C there for those printing costs. Anyone have any questions, thoughts?
Questions, comments on that? Alana, do you want to speak to any of that?
Just I think is in the report that obviously the sister city relationships are one of our delegations from council, so it would be really good to have a strong contingent from the community board there. Hopefully we'll have some great discussions and learn some things that we can implement going forward.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, comments before we?
The dinner, the informal dinner the night before, who's paying for that? Is that pay for yourself? Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I was, that's why I just wanted to clarify that. Yep, yep. It's the 7th. From the Global Cities New Zealand Board and a couple and yep.
Okay, let's get back to this. Right, who would be available to come? I'll be available to come. I do have something else around 3 o'clock that day, so I'll have to whip away slightly early, but I'll be there for the whole day till then. No? Alana, good? Great. Okay, perfect. Okay. I need to check with Sue. Is Sue out there? Could you ask her? Still live here. Just checking in if you are available to come to the Sister Cities, the Global Cities Conference, November 8th, out at the lake all day, because we're looking just to move some funding for it. Great. Okay. So Andrew? No. Okay. So it's Alana, Sue, and I, and Philip, and possibly Elise popping in here and there. Yeah.
You could just have it, so approved expenditure on the sister cities reserve of up to 350 plus GST.
Oh, Joe, just your mic. Sorry.
For the attendance of all Cambridge Community Board members, with the exception of Board Member Myers, at the Global Sisters New Zealand Regional Forum event to be held at Don Rollins Centre, Lake Karapiro, Cambridge, on 8th of November 2024, with any unused funds returned to uncommitted. Oh, with the exception. Okay. And Councillor Montgomery in there as well. So if we just.
I'm going to be there as a board member of Global Cities New Zealand, so you could probably take my $50 off.
So are we okay? So you want me to take that off?
Yeah,
definitely.
Because I'll be there in another capacity.
So Councillors Montgomery and Coles are not on this attendance in B, recommendation B.
Great. Okay. So perfect. Right. So we will, any questions about any of that before we move? Right. Okay. So we'll do all at once. We'll receive Joe's report. We'll approve that expenditure. Sorry, how much is it? 250?
No.
200.
Yep.
Yep.
So it's approved. 200 plus GST.
Okay, perfect. And are we okay to approve that payment of $635.50 for the printing of the Le Quinoa brochure? It has some new information on it about the museum that we've added on the back.
Yeah, and just in that recommendation that you're going to have a list of those people that aren't going.
Okay.
So it's that all community board members, with the exception of.
Exception of, right, okay.
How many copies of that? That's a huge amount of money for
1,000 copies.
1,000 copies. And that's for armistice.
That's for general use, so that'll last.
Right.
Mm.
Right. Okay.
Mm. Okay, I'm happy to move all of that. Someone can second, Alana, thank you. And all in favour? Please say aye. Great, carried, thank you. Right, Treasury report, back to you, Joe.
I'm going to take the Treasury report as to the period ended 30th of September 2024 as read. Does anyone have any questions?
Sorry, on that page 3, are any of those prior year commitments able to be dealt with and returned or tidy up? Like the Christmas tree lights, money that we didn't spend, leftover stuff from Anzac Day, Tree Trust hasn't claimed their grant.
We can follow those up.
Okay. Just with a smaller amount of money, it'd be good to know exactly where we're at and what we can give out before our funding round. And sorry, there was something else. Oh, in the Sister Cities Reserve balance report, there's a line for Christmas tree lights install and repair, and I think that's gone to the wrong place.
That is in the wrong place. Sorry, that should actually
Right.
be in there. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I don't want that in there.
Further to that, I was talking to the lovely people who put the lights on the Christmas tree. They're checking the lights as we speak.
Okay. And sorry, just at the bottom of that same page, returning to uncommitted, this annual Sister Cities membership, did they not charge us that year or was it a timing thing?
No, they did. So what we, because they charge us at a, by calendar year. So just in terms of we had 300 left over from last year, but it was actually kind of easier to return that bit. And then last time you just approved to pay the whole cost rather than paying for part of one and raising the other. That was, so it's more just, it's a
complication of different financial years.
An administrative return in effect, really, to cover that. Yeah.
Cool. I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Alana. Any other comments on the Treasury report? If not, let's move to receive that. I'll move that. Elise is going to second. Thank you. All in favour? Please say aye. Great. Thank you. That's carried. Right. Let's come back to Aauki. Deep breath. Deep breath, everybody. Okay. I think we should now go to and look through all our submission questions. And don't worry if we're unsure of any of them, we can add to it later. That's all right. But it's just good to get some of these things out now. Which ones? These ones? Oh, the motions? Are they?
Those are actually your submission points in your submission form. If you find the submission form in your agenda.
Page 29.
Right. I think we will do a whole movement for everything, but can we just go to C and talk about C? And then we'll do the rest of it all in one because the other stuff is pretty straightforward.
So you got to see let's make up online.
It does not make the submission, but it doesn't have
Okay.
So I suppose you've got two options. You can either have an open discussion here today on what you would like to submit on and cover those points off in the meeting. So that you can do that in a public forum. Otherwise, if you're not able to do that, you will have to delegate authority to the chair to decide in consultation with the community board, other community board members. So those are your two options.
Put
your mic on.
I read everything tonight purposely to be prepared, but you know, the motions weren't there to prepare for, so I didn't think about that, so I just feel a bit underdone.
So that the motions are directly, if you look at the questions on the submission form, what the submission form's in your packet, should be in your package of information. Yeah, because that's what you will be submitting to the consultation is the questions, your answers to the questions on the submission form. So the recommendation just follows all the questions in the submission form.
What would you guys like to do? Would you like to go through it like this, or do you want to delegate authority to me to put something together? And
I think it's probably a bit unfair to lump it to you to do it. So I think we should definitely have a live discussion about it today, cover some key points. Maybe we could just delegate authority to submit it at a later date.
Do you want to go through them?
Yeah, I think
line by
going through
line
them would be
Okay.
helpful.
Andrew,
Having
you
some
okay to do that?
on- And then might give you a bit of time to, if there's anything you're like, oh, I didn't
Yeah,
quite
we
get
can
that.
come back. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay, let's start off with C. Number 1, future developments. Oh, firstly, number 1, we are going to put a submission in. Yes. Okay, good. Right, because that's one of our things. So future developments and housing package. Does the Cambridge Community Board support or not support the activities included in the future development and housing package? And do we consider this to be the right or wrong way to address the strategic opportunities?
I'm happy to say support and agrees.
Alana?
Yeah, same. I mean, apart from a few little questions, overall, I'm very supportive of how Aauki has ended up in the current form. We've had multiple touch points along the way, both with the board and with the community. So I think it's in a pretty strong place.
Okay. Sue? Support and right. Okay. Andrew?
Yeah, I'm on the fence there, but I'll go with you guys, the majority rules, no problem.
Okay.
And I'll put some comments in the.
Yeah, we can always extrapolate a little bit. Okay. All right. Now this one might be at least to your point before. Agrees, does not agree with the proposed timing for the short-term and medium-term activities.
Yeah, that was regarding the urban design package. With that can either come under placemaking or strategic. Maybe we just put it in both, no matter where it finds. So, yeah, I would say we support the activities. Does not agree with the proposed timing. Recommends urban design guidelines be brought to the fore to the short term.
Okay.
I'll do my thing in there. On that note, reserve spaces, would they come under placemaking as well? When we talk about reserve space management, reserve management.
Community places?
Or community places.
Or both.
Okay, great.
And we've got a pedal eventually a little bit as well.
Okay, I'll hold fire on that one.
Okay. Alana, are you happy for us to put does not agree? And then just kind of, and then just talk further about, for future developments and housing.
Oh, no, because we're about to placemaking now, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Right. Oh, sorry. So we agree with future developments and housing and we support placement. Okay. And it's the right, supports, does not agree. So this is 2B. Okay, perfect. Sorry. Strategic framework package. Sorry, did you get that, Deb? No, sorry. So future developments we support and it's right. For B, we agree with the proposed timing for the short-term and medium-term activities. Then placemaking package, we support the activities included in the placemaking package and considers this to be the right way to address the strategic opportunities. We do not agree with the proposed timing for the medium-term activities, and we will extrapolate that further in our submission. So now we're on to strategic framework package. Support the activities included.
Yes.
Yep. Andrew?
And where do the scenarios 1 to 5, which area do they fit under? Kirsty?
When you talk about scenarios 1 to 5, I'm not quite sure what you're referencing, Andrew, because can you just clarify? Because if you're talking about the Hamilton Grove South, we've gone beyond that. That was part of the, we had the five future scenarios, and then from that elected members with Mana Whenua and iwi shaped up a hybrid scenario which formed the basis of the interim draft plan that we came out to the community and engaged with in February and March of last year. So we've gone beyond that. And then from using that hybrid scenario and the feedback received, then we've developed these implementation packages.
If we wanted to comment on the hybrid scenario, which section would?
Mike, can you go back? It's actually underpins the whole of the plan. Yeah, it's not in a particular area. It's informing the whole of the plan.
Okay, so we're going to support the activities included in the strategic framework package and consider this to be the right way to address the strategic opportunities. Agree or do not agree with the proposed timing for the short-term and medium-term activities? I support.
I was happy with the timing.
Yep. Alana, Sue? Yep. Right, community places package. Support or does not support the activities included in the community places package and considers this to be the right or wrong way to address the strategic opportunities.
I support and consider it the right way.
Yep. Alana, Sue, you okay with that? And Andrew?
I would add in there. Oh, we didn't add it on our strategic framework package. Sorry.
It's okay. We can go
About
back.
the urban design guidelines. We're going to submit that into both those sections.
So placemaking and strategic framework?
Yes.
Yep. Both times two. Okay.
So sorry, that would be a does not agree
Okay.
with the proposed timing and then reference the urban design guidelines. They may not be included exactly in both, but we'll just put it in both places.
So sorry, guys, that was 3B. Does not agree. Thank you. Sorry. Sorry, Elise, that was, I forgot that too. Okay, so we're back on to 4A. Yep. So can I have a little bit of everyone's okay with that?
I'm okay with A. Is everyone okay with A?
We can add more, Andrew, as later at a date. We can flesh it out a little bit more.
And B, wasn't so much an issue with the timing, but I just think that's where we make note about reorientating or somehow incorporating Waikato River as a central part of the vitality of Cambridge Township.
Okay.
Around, so that, I guess that's just maybe a tell us why.
Yeah.
Is it, do we say we do not support it, or we say we support it with this feedback?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, yeah.
Is that, with this feedback?
Yeah.
So wording around that, I guess, would be, we believe that the Waikato River is a taonga for the town of Cambridge, and currently, and in the Aauki Community Spatial Plan, there is little mention of increasing our interaction or engagement with the Awa in terms of opportunities to view it and be closer to it and
utilize it,
use it and continue to preserve it. I mean, you can go for a walk along the river, but it's not actually that easy to see.
Maybe supporting some of the comments that are around the south side of the river in Cambridge, and then asking to go further than that.
Yeah.
And perhaps very important tongue locally.
Yes. Cover that off. Just reference that, Sue, because they cover that off in great detail. Sure.
I will get you to email that statement to me. Yes. Only because I know that you might want to add as you're doing it.
Sure. The only one thing I wanted to potentially preface in the community places package also was around reserve spaces and thinking of them more broadly as not just grass reserve, but forest reserve or food reserves. I don't know how you guys think about that, but rather than just more lawn mowing reserves, creating a biodiversity reserve or a habitat reserve, or just thinking a little bit more broadly around what a reserve might look like.
Good. Okay.
Happy with that.
Yep. Do we agree or not agree with the proposed timing for the medium term activities on that?
I agree. It's any timeline issues for me.
Andrew, you okay with that? Yep. Lana, Sue? Karapiro program package. I support this one. Think it's the right way to address the strategic opportunities. Everyone else? Yep. Alana, thoughts?
I guess the only question that I had around there was in terms of the marketing of it as Destination Karapiro would be quite a change from what Waipa's done previously. It seems like in the past it's all been promote Waipa rather than a specific place within Waipa. So I just how that's fleshed out and whether that would feed into like Cambridge being marketed separately and other areas being marketed separately as well.
Sorry, you're off. Sorry, through the chair, I think it's intended as a destination management plan rather than a marketing concept, so to speak. Like, I guess I'd discourage you from aligning it to the likes of Destination Cambridge. It is actually, a management plan to look at how we better increase accessibility and connectivity around the lake and provide for business and tourism and cultural opportunities. And yeah.
Yeah. All right. Agrees or doesn't agree with the proposed timing for the medium term activities?
I agree.
Agree. Sue? Andrew? Yep. Okay. All right. So let's go through from the top and we'll do it all at once. And I'll read through just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So we are going to receive Vanessa's report. Oh, Joe's going to put them on. Oh, okay, great. Okay. If you've got them handy to go up on the screen, I can whip through them too, but it could be good for the others to have a look. That's right. I'll keep talking and then you can do that. All right. So
Just in relation to the community packages, crisis package, so that it does not support.
community package, no, that was a support.
But
And then it was right. And no, I think we were just going to add a bit more to it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to receive Vanessa's report titled Aauki Waipa Community Spatial Plan Consultation Submission. We are going to note the following draft Aauki suite of documents: statement of proposal, draft executive summary, draft plan, draft implementation plan, scenario development report, and scenario refinement report, and the engagement summary report. And where it comes, we have decided to make a submission. And for the future development and housing package, we support the activities. We consider this to be the right way to address the strategic priorities. But we do not agree with the proposed timing for the short-term and medium-term activities, and we will add more feedback there. Future development and housing. Oh, no, sorry, I didn't cross it out. Sorry. Agree with that one. It's the next one. Sorry. Yes, perhaps putting it up is the right. Yes, it's been a very long day. Right. Placemaking package. We support the activities included. We believe this to be the right way to address strategic opportunities. And here we do not agree with the proposed timing for the medium-term activities. And this is where we recommend the urban design will be brought into the short term, and we will add more to that. Strategic framework package. We support this. We consider it to be the right way. We do not agree with the proposed timing on short-term, medium-term activities for this either, for the same reason. We'll add more there. Community places package, we support, consider it to be the right way, and we agree with the proposed timing for the medium-term activities. We will add more here about the river, reserve spaces, etc. Karapiro program package, we support the activities, we consider it to be the right way, and we agree with the proposed timing for the medium-term activities. Then we also delegate authority to me to finalize the community board submission. in consultation with community board members to ensure the submission is received by council by 5 p.m. Monday, the 4th of November. I will move that. Elise will second it. And all in favour? Thank you. Right. You wanna cover that? Yes. Yes, please. Yep. That would be, please.
Sorry to take up all your time.
Never.
It says here, no, it says at the start, the purpose of this report is to provide an update to the Cambridge Community Board on Aauki, blah, 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 and to provide background information on making a decision as to whether or not to submit as part of the process. It doesn't say we are going to submit tonight. It doesn't say what we're going to submit on tonight. It just says, are we making a decision whether or not to submit? That's all it says in the minute, and that's how I took it.
Just in terms of, you will see from the report the timing of the consultation, and you would have realised that it closes before your next meeting. So that means, and we talked about those two options just before, didn't we? That you could either, and that's often what we do with consultations, they're there, we don't know whether you're going to submit on them all. It's up to you to decide, read the material. Is there anything in there you want to submit on? Have a think about that. Take particular note if there is submission forms in there as to what the questions are, so you know what you're kind of coming to talk about, and if you're going to submit, what those points are that you've been specifically asked. So I think this is kind of how it's come to you in the past, and I think it's really important if you're looking at consultations that have been presented to think about the timelines and whether you do want to submit and kind of come with all those ideas.
I asked some questions before. Those questions were in reports submitted as tonight's document, and so I wasn't, I was said that we'd moved on past then. But why were these reports included tonight for consultation if I couldn't ask a question relating to those and be answered?
Oh, sorry, through the chair, the question that you are referencing is about the 5 scenarios. If you're talking about the 5 packages, that's different. How you framed it, I thought you were talking about the 5 scenarios. Hamilton grows south, no growth. So that's the scenarios. The questions in this statement of proposal and the consultation document are around the 5 implementation packages. Absolutely, that's what we're seeking feedback on now with the community. So I may have misunderstood you. I'm sorry, it is late and I may not be as alert as what I should be. So yeah, if you're able to clarify.
You haven't, but I just feel like it. I'm sorry, I don't feel like that's clear enough in the statement about what we're doing tonight. And if it was clear, I would be better prepared. So that's just some feedback, and I'm happy to admit that I'm wrong, and I'm sorry about that. I just hope you can take that feedback on board. Thank you.
You can definitely email me further thoughts, and we can extrapolate the things that we've discussed tonight, and we will still do a great submission for sure. Okay, thank you. Right. What is happening? Okay. Chair's report. Okay, that's my report. Right. I'm the chair. That's right. Okay, so the quarry. I will take my chair's report as read. Right, so obviously we know, but for anyone listening, there is currently a consent application open for a new proposed sand quarry at 77 Newcombe Road, which is opposite the Cambridge Golf Club. So simply put, this quarry would mine sand and transport it across the town and beyond. I won't read the whole thing about the quarry because it's quite involved, but it does give you a picture of the activities that would be there. We need to now decide whether we are going to make a submission towards this resource consent application. We decided as members of the Cambridge Community Board to request an extension. Since I wrote that report, the extension that we requested from Waipa District Council and Waikato Regional Council has been granted. So we now have an extra 10 days, which would take us to November the 4th. And that will give us a good amount of extra time to go out to our community and find out what our community thinks about this. So I'm very happy now to open it up to comments and a discussion around this. And I'll start off by saying that I don't believe as a community board we will be anti-quarry. We will just be concerned around some of the activities that may come from a quarry itself in our town. Can I put it out to say that we will make a submission? Are you guys keen to do that? Great. Okay, Andrew, we'll be doing a submission, on the quarry? Perfect. Okay, so now I'm happy to hear your comments and thoughts, major considerations that we'll be putting in our submission. Thank you. Elise, would you mind starting?
Happy to start. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with your point that we're not anti-quarry, but are concerned around the impact that a quarry may have, a close quarry, a large close quarry might have in our town. I mean, there's a number of quarries already in the Waipa district, and I guess the concern is the truck movement specifically through town. I know the Chamber of Commerce is very concerned about it, received their email, their submission. They are representatives of our community as well, so take their feedback on board. My concerns would be around impacting the amenity of our town, vitality of our town, if we had more truck movements through there, and the kind of air and noise pollution aspect of things would be concerning to me. Increasing congestion around some of our key arterial routes, which are already problematic, increasing road wear, with, you know, again, increased truck movements coming through town. I've received conflicting information around what those truck movements are, so acknowledge that maybe that's hard to get a really good read on as to what those truck movements will really look like. But I think it's important that we protect the amenity of our small CBD and make it really livable and really people friendly, and trucks, as much as they're a critical part of infrastructure and moving things around our country and towns, we need to make sure they're going in ways that don't disrupt the amenity of towns. So yeah, I think for me, the issue would be around the truck movements and the resulting kind of noise and air pollution that might have on our CBD. So happy to, and I'm really interested now to hear what the public say. So when you have an opportunity to put it in your column to see if we hear more back from them, it'd be interesting to see what the Chamber's received from the information they put out to I think 98% of people came back to them. Yeah, interested to hear what they have discovered, and really interested to hear from our community around it. I know it's a tight turnaround now for us to hear from them and then submit, but would like to hear more from them. But I imagine it would be similar concerns. So
agree. And good point around the truck movements. We have heard different numbers. I guess it would be increased. So I guess that's what we'll be discussing. Whatever it is, it's going to be more than what we currently have. So good point there. So just watch your mic there.
Yeah, this issue actually came up about 3 terms ago, exactly the same area, and quite a lot of opposition at the time, and it was tossed out. And that's that. I'm not sure, but I think the number of movements through the town was quite high. And I think, I think it's almost like the company has since changed hands, and they think they'll have another go. And that really annoys me. So I'm hoping that all those who actually opposed it last time, and there was a lot of opposition last time, I hope they're all having their say.
I guess as a board, we've probably agreed that we're not anti-quarries, so we would not like to say that we.
But it's just the fact that it comes up, the route comes up through the town, and what it does, you can imagine, a quarry is going to be working 24 hours a day, probably. Even if not, they're going to be starting early in the morning. You can imagine trying to get your kids to school early in the morning, 8 o'clock, and there's 2 or 3 great trucks. They would have been loaded up the end of the day before, and yet they are coming through. And, that's just nuts.
Okay, so that will come back to our increased congestion and truck movements. Alana, happy to hear from you.
Thank you, Joe. Just a couple of things for me, I guess, with regards to the truck movements. I agree with what's been said on that. To paraphrase Aauki, higher rates of traffic like large trucks through our towns undermines character. So that's probably something that we want to touch on. And also in my Aauki readings, a couple of things in terms of environmental effects. So Waipa District Council must give effect to Te Ture Whai Mano o Te Awa. So through planning, service delivery, to ensure protection and enhancement of the Waikato and Waipa rivers and catchments. So just want to make sure that there are protections in that consent for our awa. Really.
Yeah, being involved in Cambridge Connections, I kind of heard firsthand, the effect of growth and high levels of especially heavy vehicles on our infrastructure. So I'm really concerned about that. One particular concern was about vibrations and shaking affecting the geotechnical issues around the bridges and the soil. I'm not saying that this project is absolutely going to cause that, but that was a concern for the current infrastructure we have. So I'm really concerned about that. Yeah, I don't want to see more heavy vehicles travelling through town. That would be my opinion. From a slightly rural perspective, I did just want to touch on the adjacent to the Kirapara stream and the potential effects on that are of concern to the environment. And I'm not going to touch on that much because we're concerned mainly about the traffic movements, but I just want to mention that.
So anything further? I think when I spoke to Quentin, who was the lead planner, he really encouraged me that our submission doesn't have to be overly technical. It doesn't have to be overly involved. It can be super simple. And he wanted me to pass that on to the community. People can actually just submit and say, I support or do not support this application. It can be as simple as that. So for people at home who do want to make an application and then maybe don't, are not across all of the technical details, it can be as simple as that. And I think ours should be simple like that too. So I think the community board makes a submission on the resource consent to establish and operate a sand quarry at 77 Newcombe Road, Cambridge, covering the following issues: increased congestion and truck movements working against the vibrancy of our CBD, environmental effects, and again, we'll extrapolate further, vibrations, shaking, technical concerns, bridge foundations, heritage buildings, and then I think a separate one on the Kirapara stream. And then just extrapolating on those further and fleshing them out.
Basically, he's given us permission to keep it simple.
Mm.
Then I don't even know if we need to do big flesh outs.
Okay, just a couple of sentences.
Environmental ones. I wonder if you can bring Karapiro stream into the environmental
that other one. Yep, we have 4 points there, but we don't need 4 points, do we? We can just do the two.
We do not support it in relation to the potential negative impacts on vibrancy,
good idea.
community, negative environmental impacts regarding noise and air pollution, noise, air, water, pollution.
Yep.
Geotechnical concerns around increased heavy geotechnical concerns around our historic buildings and road usability and bridges.
Bridges. Yep, bridges. Okay.
They're quite important.
Yeah.
Those three.
Okay. Yeah, great. And they will be the same three to the Waikato regional submission also.
Yeah,
same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, we can just delegate authority to me if we need to change anything, add anything. Yeah.
And I think that's really good.
Let's keep it simple, straight to the point. And yeah, is everyone happy with those main points? Yes. I might just say it to you because I'm not sure I've got it. So increased, Elise, can you say to Deb those 3 points?
We do not support the
just the three topics that we're going to discuss. Increased congestion and truck movements.
So are you going to say that you do not support it because?
No, we don't not support the quarry, but we have considerations. Yeah, because it's a tricky one, isn't it?
So you've got makes a submission on the issues.
Isn't it? And it's beyond me why they can't actually go up to Quarry and then get off the expressway there.
Thank you, Sue. Yeah, thank you. Right, let's work. Let's come back on this.
Well, are they asking us a question? They're not necessarily asking us a
No,
question.
they're not.
So I don't think, maybe we don't have to say support.
Yes, I'd like to rewrite that. I don't think we need to have.
You don't have got
No,
support.
no. Okay, no.
So you don't need it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So just take a minute and just.
Increased congestion and truck
movements.
movements. Yep.
Mm.
Environmental effects. So if you get that part,
You don't need
don't worry about
yet.
that. No, we're going to
Yeah.
keep it so
just-
simple.
Just keep it simple, yeah.
Yep. Environmental effects, negative environmental effects, and that includes well, we're just going to put in environmental effects, negative environmental effects, and then we will
Yeah.
add what else. And then vibrations, shaking, geotechnical concerns, and then we will add more to that. Was that what you?
I don't think we need to, yeah.
Even more simple than that? Okay.
And traffic congestion.
Sorry, increased traffic congestion and truck movements.
So you increase congestion and first one will increase
Traffic and congestion.
congestion and.
I could be.
I would say keep it simple, but we probably need to be clear that we are strongly opposed to increased truck movements through town
Yes.
as our
Number one.
main line.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then we can come
Yep.
to those other two.
Yep.
Cambridge
Yep.
can submit, yeah.
Concerned with increased traffic congestion and truck movements through town.
Yes.
Is that what you?
Yeah. Negative environmental effects.
Vibration, shaking and geotechnical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're going to put that up on the screen now. Okay. We can have a little look at it there and then. Great. I can read it, Joe, if that's easier. Do you want me to read it? Okay. So can you scroll up? Oh, we're just receiving your report. Receiving my chair's report. We've decided to make a submission on the resource consent at 77 Newcombe Road with covering the following issues: concern with increased traffic congestion and truck movements through town, negative environmental effects, vibration, shaking, and geotechnical concerns. And we're going to delegate the authority to myself to finalize our submission in consultation with other community board members, and that will be before the 4th of November. I'll just add that in, Evelyn. Thank you. Yep. Right. Do you want to second that? Andrew's going to second that. All in favour? Great. Okay, that's carried. Well done, everyone. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to board members' reports from meetings attended on behalf of the Cambridge Community Board. Mike, can I start with you for council? And I'm going to go around this way.
Okay, I'll be quick because
Yep.
you are over most things because a lot of it has been LTP and you've just had your update today. So there are only two things, I think, maybe three. On the 14th of October, just the other day, we had the alcohol hearings, which you guys are all over. Haven't had deliberations yet, so watch this space, but you're well up with that. Aauki you're well up with. So the only other thing I want to inform you of, 25th of September, the Finance and Corporate Committee actually held the hearings on the representation review. Okay. Joe here's the expert, but it essentially resulted in status quo. And it was recommended to prepare a final proposal to go back to council yesterday. Joe, what's happening with that? I only picked that up when I was going back through my minutes.
It'll be on your agenda for the end of the month. Yeah, so just a bit more time on that.
Go to council, isn't it, at the end of this month? Yeah.
And the last one, I just wanted to update you on where the waters is going, the water services stuff. So there are two things in parallel happening there. There's the local water done well project. I'm on the governance group for that. That's the one where we have to respond to the government, showing how we have a viable and sustainable plan for the provision of water going forwards. Okay, and the deadline for that, we have to have it in towards the end of next year. It's actually a much bigger piece of work than you think. It's tracking along reasonably well. So it's, yeah, there's sort of nothing to report there, but it's happening. And at the same time, there's this another parallel thing, which is Waikato Water's done well, and that is the proposal of the various territorial authorities to maybe voluntarily merge in some way. That's being the sort of the mayors are driving that, and that's tracking along as well. So they're kind of in parallel. I sort of foreshadowed this probably last time I think I mentioned it, just to give you a heads up that there is stuff happening there, because I have a sense that a lot of people just think it disappeared with you know, the last change in government, that Three Waters just disappeared, but it kind of hasn't. There is quite an expectation from central government that we improve in this space, and there's quite an expectation that Waikato will do something. Okay, so it's yeah, it's a complex piece of work. I've got not much more to report, but just be aware of it, that it's happening. Okay, so I don't want you surprised when stuff starts moving on that. Any questions? That's me.
I'll come. Is this on council?
Yeah, well, that's the new government's initiative that were the Three Waters, like we said, it has disappeared, but this is the new alternative from the national government, which has been in power for a year now.
Thank you. Andrew.
I attended the Rest Haven AGM on my own intuition as behalf of the Cambridge Community Board.
Thank you.
I was interested in kind of how they're progressing, what their thoughts about the water tower were. So I went there and that was interesting. I just wanted to say, they're looking to develop a new set of apartments. They are going to do the ones closer to Vogel Street, so it's away from the zone of the water tower purposefully, so there's no sort of conflict there, and they can get ahead and plan and start doing that. And they're generating quite a good space. They said there's a massive demand for the aged accommodation at the lower socioeconomic area that the private enterprises aren't catering for. They're too expensive, and Rest Haven can't meet all the demand that is swamping their door. So I thought that was really interesting. I organised a meeting with the growers. Some of them attended tonight. Mike came along, which was great. We spent about an hour out at Whitehall Fruit Pickers talking about the shelter belts and fruit structure and crop protection structures. I attended the Go Waipa. They run the pool. I was interested in the pool facilities. They had an AGM. Some interesting things I thought was costs the council $14 per visit to operate the pools. So an adult might pay $8. About half of it's funded by the community, which is good. Numbers are all up through the year that they utilise usage, which I thought was really good. Cambridge has 162,000 visits and Te Awamutu 132,000. So that was interesting. Safer Cambridge. Joe, you can talk to that because Joe went in my place for the recent meeting. I attended the Cambridge Fire Brigade annual awards dinner on behalf of the Cambridge Community Board, which was a successful night. Louise Upston, Susan O'Regan were there. They both spoke. Talked to lots of people. No real concerns there, which is good. Been contacted by Murray Reid, our friend in Leamington. He's got concerns about.
We just need to be careful around Murray's privacy because obviously this is live streamed if he is a complainant. So no further details on Murray, please.
It's not related to.
I think let's keep Murray out of the public domain. Thank you.
All right. I think we should acknowledge we've received a lot of emails about fluoride. This is not related to my last comment at all. This is a separate issue. We've been hammered really in the inbox, so that I think we should note that. We've been reading them, and some responses gone to those people. People involved with Cambridge Motocross have contacted me about what's happening at the site that they used to occupy in Leamington, and some talk about that. So there's something simmering away in the background there, but I have no further information about that than what I've said. And, lastly, I attended the Bohoro delegation with the Sister City Exchange, and I thought that was a fantastic trip. So I just like thank you for the opportunity to go. Thank you to Alana for your hard work and everything you do in organising that trip. I just thought it was a great place to go to, and I came away from the visit seeing a lot more value than what I thought beforehand. So I'd encourage more people to go that haven't been before. I got to know the people in Bohoro really well, but I also got to know the people on the trip a lot better through the trip, and that's good for our community. I think Japan is in a place where Cambridge might be in 2050, and they're in there now and been there for 20 years already. So I thought that was really interesting with the aged population, decreasing population, struggling to fund infrastructure, high debt. I keep my eye out and talk to people about that while I was there. So I thought that was really relevant. And of course, agricultural, I talked to everyone there about agriculture and cropping and all sorts of things. That was good connections. Thank you.
Great update, Andrew. You are all over all of the things, and we just appreciate you going to all of those things. And yeah, I reckon.
Can I just ask you a question?
Excellent.
Or are the farmers there planning to come out the next?
I think Alana will answer that question for you, Sue. So I'm going to go to Philip, and then Alana will answer that for you.
Yeah, just quickly, the swimming pool report yesterday, I think it was. The results of that is just phenomenal. The use to that is really amazing, and great feedback we're getting from the community on that. So just quickly, I've just been elected on as a trustee on Waipa Networks now. So we're really excited about that. So it all starts next week with inductions and things like that. So looking forward to that.
Just to clarify, the board that appoints the director of the trust of the legislature, but
Any updates on meetings attended on behalf of the Cambridge Community Board?
No.
Good.
Button. So I attended the Cambridge Commercial Property Owners Group meeting at Onyx, and they talked about the Hautapu Hotel development yesterday. So
It's exciting.
did that as well. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Sue.
the Tree Trust have been very busy. They're finding little areas out on the far reaches of the green belt that haven't necessarily had any attention lately. And they're not being grazed at the moment. They are being able to go in and do some nice planting and clearing of rubbish. So there'll be more recreational areas hopefully opening up. And they're doing an area up Swain Road. There's a big empty section up there, and they were started clearing some near the shop that's up there. But they started clearing and, where we'd like to put a playground. And the next thing, they actually got an inquiry from one of the nearby residents who wanted to come and buy some trees from them for her place.
Great.
So they were a bit floored by that one.
Excellent. Thank you. Alana.
Thank you. Yes. Busy on Sister City stuff, really. So Lukinwa regular general meeting. So that included plans for a display at the Armistice at Karapiro event happening the weekend of the 9th and 10th of November. Lukinwa delegation planning meeting. So kicked off that. There's also potential opportunities for our delegates to expand their trip to include activities with the Te Arawhata patrons group. That'll be in France at the same time. So it's a bit of a watch this space. The GCNZ forum planning meeting. So finalising our speakers and the opportunities for GCNZ board to visit places of interest in Cambridge while they're here. Autumn Festival progressing, current focus on funding there. Went to the Town Hall AGM. Sounds like everything's going pretty well there at the moment. The renovation of the side rooms and the kitchen will be starting soon, and their bookings are well up. They are looking for 2 new trustees, particularly with people in skills and fundraising. So if you know anyone. Then yes, of course, the Bihoro delegation. A highlight for me was definitely the people. They're so lovely and they looked after us really, really well. As Andrew touched on, Japan and Bihoro facing challenges related to ageing population and decline, which, potential issues in our future as well. So, I mean, as a comparison, at the moment, their population is 36% over 65 years of age. So if you look at the scenario in Aauki, we're looking at about 30%. So possibly some learnings that we can share with each other. They also have a trend of younger people leaving to go to bigger cities for education and other opportunities. So their schools are working to combat that. They work in partnership with their council, which is really interesting. Again, hopefully some things we can learn there. And staffing in their rural sector is a problem. The government provides subsidies for technology to help combat that. So perhaps also some learnings there as well, something I'm sure Andrew's exploring. And one really nice thing was there were a couple of English language teachers there, both Kiwis, and they said, thanks for our jobs. We got these positions because of the sister city relationship. So potentially there's ways that we can encourage that in the future as well. And opportunities to work with Cambridge High School and rural sector on exchanges coming up. That's just brief highlights. I can share more with you later on. There's also been a debrief with the group that went to Bihoro. A lot of that was around logistics and improvements for future delegations, and we have tentative dates for the next visit for them to come to Cambridge, being February 2026, and a tentative date for us to go there in February 27. So they've suggested a different time of year. Bihoro is quite a different place when there's a lot of snow around, and it's traditionally a quiet time for them in their agricultural and other calendars. So for them to come here, it would suit. So yeah, that's me at the moment.
Great, excellent update. Thank you, Elise.
So much for me, team. On a meeting with some stakeholders and food production and this was after our last meeting. I said I was going to.
Yes, that's right.
It's people from Raleigh Street Christian Centre want to start a food forest potentially on the green belt. The council has found them some land, a number of acres for them to manage and start planting fruit trees on, which would be cool. So sit down with them and Street Harvest, which is me and from Mainstream Green, looking at synergies, looking at how the future of food production and public reserve spaces might grow. But lots of really fun, exciting ideas around planning, making it mainstream for council to plant fruit trees as opposed to ornamentals, when there are opportunities for that. Another really cool thing that I learned was that actually council's really happy to plant a tree on your berm if you want one, and they will source a really good tree and they will plant it for you, and they will make sure that it's established well and grows well. They'd much rather do that than people put their own trees that may not be appropriate for the space. So I think that's something cool to communicate to our community in the future as well. Yeah, but there's obviously more happening in that space with private groups, which is good.
Do you want to speak at all on our 6-monthly reporting that you and I did?
Oh yeah, I did.
Why don't you do that?
This is late. Sleep last night. Yes, we spoke to council, which is always a great opportunity at the SPMP meeting to our 6-monthly report. Joe and I shared where we've come from and what we're going to do in the future. We specifically asked council, maybe you guys have seen it, specifically asked council to look laterally around how we can meet our strategic objectives around a library proposition for Cambridge. So I don't know how that the outcome of that, but I felt like we were really well received by councillors, mayor and staff, which was cool. And all in all, it's always quite good to look back and see what we've achieved. It's been incredibly productive and busy 2 years of this term, 75%.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. We still have high hopes to see what we want to see achieved in the next 12 months. But yeah, full credit. There was, Susan made a comment on the leadership of our board being reflected in us being a really effective team. So full credit to you, Joe, for doing a great job as our chair.
Thank you.
And really doing some serious mahi all the time. And so I think that was really obvious in our reporting that we've got a great leader
Thank you.
moving us forward.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Hey, that was on my list. I'm sorry, I missed it. It's really late, right? I'd actually written it down. CCB, Joe and Elise. So look, it was really, really well received. Okay. Yeah. You guys came across really well. It was yeah, it was great. So well done and keep doing it. It's such a great touch point with council, and the way you've been showing up to do submissions is really, really effective now. You know, the way that community board submissions are top of the listing. It's been a really good move. And the fact that Joe's been sitting at the LTP workshops where she can, it's yeah, I think it's quite a significant sort of manifestation of community boards 2.0. So well done, team.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely a step forward. Brad, I'll come to you and then on to me.
Yeah, out of my conscious, I wouldn't typically actively contribute to this part of the hui, but I think it's a reasonably pertinent update. There's a media release that's gone out today around Te Kutu Playground, just for your information, that we do annual checks of all our playgrounds, and that includes attenuation testing of the safety surfacing. That actually failed, even though it's a reasonably new playground. And so we're working with the suppliers to understand why and the intricacies around the warranty of that. So it will be closed. Well, sorry, the couple of components will be closed. I believe that the swings are still open and other bits and pieces, but just a couple of components will be fenced off until we can mitigate that risk.
Right. Thank you. Good update. Right. Me, obviously LTP workshops. I am just working so hard to understand all of the things. It is really complex stuff. I don't have any finance background, and I'm trying to ask the questions. And I'm trying to pass back on to you guys what's happening, but you absolutely need to listen to them yourselves because there is a lot of info. And, you know, there'll be more coming forward. So coming, you know, to us. So if there's times that you can read the papers and feedback to me before the meeting is always appreciated. And yeah, I'm just trying to input there as much as possible. But they are really good, and I'm understanding more and more, and I'm beginning to see the picture that is being painted, and it's reassuring to see how hard the staff and the elected members are doing to try and get us into a good position. They're really leaving no stone unturned in what they're trying to do, and it's really good for me to see that. And there's definitely more work to come. It's not ideal at the moment, but there's more stuff that they're doing, and we'll just keep, I'll keep going and I'll keep asking questions and yeah, see where we land. And we'll obviously be submitting on it next year. Speaking on that, I went to the Cambridge Community Safer Trust meeting, and they really wanted me to attend to speak to them about their funding and their desire to see their funding. That will be submit on next year in the LTP submission, but I just wanted to mention it to you now so we can start thinking about that. Obviously, we've seen them quite a bit come through our meetings. We know the good work they're doing, both in the community patrol, which is all funded by CNR developments. Actually, it doesn't come out of that, out of any other money, and just also all the neighborhood stuff they do and all of the work that Eileen does, especially. So that can come next year. Third bridge discussion was really good with a group of residents and with Steph and Susan and Dawn and Brian, which was really productive. A group of residents who had an idea for a bridge placement, really good to bring them together with staff. It was really good meeting. And obviously nothing further than just their proposal of their idea, and the staff were really good at listening and giving them feedback. And then I had a really nice catch up with Steph, which was really great. She asked me, tell me about every single member of your board. And I went through each of you. And I was like, this is why Sue's great. This is why Lana's great. This is why Lisa's great. And she was very receptive and engaging and really positive about the work that we have done and our vision. And that was a really great thing that I got to do with her. And I said to her, I'd like to do this more frequently because she's really great. So that was good. And I think that's me. Right. Okay. Right, date of next meeting, the Cambridge Community Board meeting will be on Wednesday, the 20th of November at 6 p.m. And I'll just close our meeting now with our closing karakia. Tipo hihiri, tipo rarama, tipo o ti whakaro, tipo o ti tangata, tipo o ti aroha, ko ene nā po, I here nei I a tātou, mauri ora ki a tātou, haumie huie tākie. May clarity be yours, may understanding be yours through reflection, through personal endeavour, through respect. These are the virtues that bind us as one. May we be filled with well-being, join, gather, unite. And good night.